Family ghosted me in a reunion I paid for, asked me to forgive sister for stealing my money. So I gave them an invoice at dinner, called the cops. I should have realized something was wrong the instant I turned into the parking lot. There are no recognizable cars, no commotion, no cousins smoking near the bins while pretending no one is looking. Just silence. I checked the message again. Friday at 7 p.m. Mateos. Cannot wait to see everyone. Sent by Mom. 2 weeks ago. It was Friday at 7:02 p.m. I was exactly on time. Like an idiot. When I stepped inside, the frigid air gave way to mellow jazz and clinking drinks. The place wasn't completely vacant, but the private room I had paid for was locked. Dark. "Can I help you, sir?" the hostess inquired, scarcely looking up. "Yeah. Thompson party, private dining room?" She studied the list. "Oh yeah. That was last night." I blinked. No, it was tonight. I paid the deposit. I booked it." She tilted her head. "Sir, they were here. 16 people, big cake. Your mom brought place cards. Are you sure you're not confused?" I laughed. Actually, I laughed. One of those dry, stinging ones that expires halfway through your mouth. "No, I'm not confused." She paused, feeling embarrassed. "Do you want to call someone?" I did not respond to her. I was already dialing. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Hi, sweetie," Mom murmured, her voice too light and casual. "Everything okay?" I looked straight ahead. "Where is everybody?" A pause. She then offered that airy little laugh she always used when she knew she'd made a mistake but didn't want to confess it. "Oh honey, it was yesterday. We thought you weren't coming. But don't worry, we'll bring you leftovers." I froze. "What?" She repeated it as if it were no great issue. "It was yesterday. We'll bring you leftovers." I did not even say goodbye. I just hung up. Nobody called back. Not Mom. Not Rachel. Not anyone. Then a text appeared. Rachel Lomeo. "Bro, you really missed it. Classic. Do not worry, we saved you one roll." I couldn't tell if my hand was shaking due to cold or wrath. I looked at the hostess. "They came, they ate, they left." She shrugged. "Looked like they were having fun." Of course they did. They usually do when I am not present. I went without saying anything more. Did not call, yell or write in the group chat. But I did not go home either. I sat in the car with the engine turned off, staring at my reflection in the glass, thinking about the bill, the card charge, and the 10 unread texts I'd sent my mother 3 days ago to confirm the time. They all knew. They simply didn't care. They had made that decision together. And tomorrow, I'd make my. You'd think being excluded from a paid-for family dinner would be the worst part. It was not. It was the cherry on top of a 5-year rubbish sundae. This was not the first time they had left me out. Not even close. It was the first time they had been honest enough not to fake it. I was always an afterthought. Growing up, Rachel was the bright one who only needed a little help getting started. I was the one who did not require much. That was their code for, "You can thrive without love, so we won't waste it on you." When I obtained my first real job, I called Mom with pride. She did not say congratulations. She responded, "Great. Now you can finally help your sister with rent." That was the beginning of it. 1 month's rent evolved into a year. Bills came next. Then she underwent dental surgery. Next, consider car insurance. Then came textbooks for her new nursing program, which she dropped after 1 semester and never reimbursed me for. I paid because I believed it was what you did when you love your family. But love in my family only goes one way. Every time I mentioned it, even gently, I was slammed with, "Stop being so transactional. We're family. Rachel is going through a lot. You know that. You're doing better than her. Why are you keeping score?" I was not keeping score. They simply refused to recognize I was bleeding. I recall one night, 2 years ago. I had just wired Rachel $600 for her emergency vet cost. Later that day, she shared an Instagram story featuring new shoes, new nails, and a guy's hand wrapped around a champagne glass. I showed Mom the story. She scrolled, smirked, and replied, "You boys always get so petty about money." Petty. I paid their property taxes last winter since Dad forgot, and the county issued a lien warning. I covered Rachel's credit card minimums for 6 months after she was laid off, despite the fact that I was barely getting by myself. One Christmas, I depleted my savings to buy gifts for everyone. So what did I get? A framed family photo. I wasn't in it. but nothing compared to the night I found out what they truly thought of me. It was approximately 6 months ago. I was staying at my parents' place for the weekend. I had just bailed Rachel out of another jam, this time with $1,200, after she had mistakenly overdrafted again. I walked downstairs to get some water and heard voices in the living room. Rachel responded, "He's so obsessed with being the martyr. It's pathetic." She replied, "I know. He acts like he's some kind of savior just because he pays for things." He was chuckling. "Let him pay. He's not going to find a wife anyway, might as well be useful." First. Stood in the hall, paralyzed. Rachel repeated smugly, "You know he thinks we'd fall apart without him." Snort. "Please. If he disappeared tomorrow, I wouldn't even notice." I didn't enter the room. I went back upstairs, lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Mom made pancakes the next morning as if nothing had happened. Following that, I stopped sending money for nearly 2 weeks. Then, Rachel texted, "Rachel, I need help with my rent. I will pay you back. Promise." I did not respond. 2 days later, Mom called. "Mom. Rachel's behind on bills. She's in a really bad place. You know she's sensitive. Why are you being cold?" I responded, "I just can't keep doing this." Her response was, "If you're going to punish us for raising you, maybe we shouldn't have bothered." That broke me worse than I realized at the time. I sent the money later in the day. After all that, they held a family reunion without me. I paid for my dinner. I confirmed a specific time. When I contacted Mom to see where they were, she had the audacity to say, "It was yesterday, we'll bring you leftovers." Leftovers. Like a dog. Not a son. Not a brother. Simply a wallet with arms. I sat in the car outside Mateo's for a long time that night. I did not cry. I did not yell. I sat in that heavy, dense silence, thinking about every time I'd been the nice guy and how much it had cost me. Tomorrow, I would not be the good one. Tomorrow they'd discover what it's like when I stop performing my role, and I knew just where to start. I did not sleep that night. Not because I was sad, not even mad. Honestly, I was calculating. After tax and tip, my dinner at Mateo's came to $1,740. 16 persons. Appetizers. Menu can be customized. I'd even paid more for Rachel's vegan food and Aunt Mary's wine allergy accommodations. They did not simply forget me. They knew, yet they did it nonetheless. The following morning, I sent a message to the family group chat. Me. Let's meet at Mom's tonight at 7 p.m. I've got something for you. Nobody inquired what it was. Of course they did not. They never asked me any questions. At 6:58 I parked into my folks' driveway. Inside they had already gathered. Rachel was on the phone. Dad was in his recliner, drinking a beer. Mom fluffed the couch pillows as if we were expecting company. She looked up and grinned. "Hi, honey. We weren't sure if you'd still be upset." I said nothing. Rachel looked up. Phony sympathy pasted across her cheeks. "You know we didn't do it to hurt you," she told me. "It was just easier for everyone to come Thursday. Most of us have lives." She said this with a straight face. I placed a large envelope on the coffee table. "What's this?" Mom inquired. I sat down gently and calmly, saying, "It's a bill." Dad scoffed. "A bill for what?" "For dinner," I responded. "The one you all enjoyed without me." Rachel laughed. "You're joking." "I'm not." Mom narrowed her eyes. "Are you seriously trying to make us pay you back?" "No," I replied, leaning forward. "I'm giving you the opportunity. Because from now on, anything you want from me comes with an invoice." There was quiet. Then Dad sat up straighter. "You need to drop this attitude, son. We're family, right?" I responded, "Family? The same family that intentionally excluded me from a reunion I paid for? The same family that's drained me financially and emotionally for 5 years straight?" Rachel rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. No one made you pay." That's when something inside me snapped. I stood up. "You know what? Fine. Let's talk about what no one made me do." I pointed at Rachel. "I wasn't made to pay your rent for 2 years, or cover your overdraft fees, or replace your transmission." I turned to Mom. "I wasn't made to cover your back taxes, or pay for your birthday cruise when you said Dad forgot, or pick up groceries when you suddenly couldn't walk because of your knee." Dad's face became red. "Watch it." "Oh, I'm just getting started, I explained, pulling out a printed list from my pocket. You don't want to hear it? I do. I've had to live it. And then comes the twist. I took out a folder and tossed it onto the table. What's this now? Dad demanded. I smiled. Documentation of every single transaction, every wire, every Venmo, every Cash App, every receipt. Rachel snorted. Wow. You really are insane. No, I replied, dead calm. I'm protected. Because I filed a fraud report this morning. All of this. I clicked on the folder. It's already in the system. What are you talking about? Mom inquired, her voice becoming hushed. I stared her directly in the eyes. Last week, I found out someone used my name to open a new credit card. The same one that paid for a new iPhone and a spa package Rachel posted about but claimed was a gift from a friend. Rachel froze. I called the credit company. They're investigating it as identity theft. The address they gave them? Yours. She stood up. Are you kidding me? Nope, I replied. And if you think I won't press charges. You wouldn't dare, Mom hissed. Try me. The room exploded. Rachel yelled. You're pathetic, Dad shouted. You want to send your own sister to jail? You want me to keep playing the idiot? Forever? I responded. Mother burst into tears. You're destroying this family. No, I replied, going toward the door. I'm finally saving myself from it. And now for the second twist. As I turned away, someone spoke for the first time. My cousin, Luke. The quiet one. He rarely speaks out at family gatherings. I'd like to pay my share, he stated softly. Of the dinner. I mean, it's only fair. Everyone looked at him, shocked. He added, and I know I should have said something, but they did plan to exclude you. I was there when they joked about it. Said you'd be too dramatic. I'm sorry. I looked at him and smiled for the first time that night. Thanks. Then I walked out. They felt they could utilize me indefinitely. But they forgot one thing. Even the quiet ones finally talk. And when we do not whisper. We called the cops. My phone buzzed the next morning at 8:17 a.m. This is a private number. I picked it up. Hi, is this Ethan Thompson? Yes. This is Officer Reynolds, local precinct. We're currently following up on a report of financial fraud involving a credit card opened in your name. Your family was listed at the billing address. We'll be visiting the property today for a statement. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then, do you need me there? No, sir. You've done your part. We'll take it from here. I hung up and sat in silence. For once, they'd open the door and discover someone they couldn't gaslight. This time, I didn't need to talk. The police handled everything for me. I believed that stillness would bring serenity. Instead, it created mayhem. They say that removing the keystone from an arch causes everything to collapse. I was not the keystone. I was the entire basis. And the second I stepped away, the house of cards collapsed. The police visit was not subtle. Mom left a long, angry voicemail stating that they arrived at 7:45 a.m., while she was still wearing her robe. Dad had not even had his coffee yet. 2 officers, 1 male and 1 female, polite but direct. We're following up on an identity theft claim. The credit card was opened in your son's name. It was used for over $4,000 worth of purchases tied to this address. We need to know who had access. Mom's response. There must be some mistake. We're a good family. Classic. They asked to talk with everyone in the house. Rachel attempted to leave in the middle of the chat, claiming she had work. The officers asked her to stay. She cracked within 5 minutes. It wasn't even fraud. He always helps. I thought he wouldn't mind. Mom jumped in. She's under stress. She didn't mean it. Unfortunately, it was too late. The officer documented everything, videotaped it, and even demanded to see Rachel's phone. That's when things became worse. They discovered text messages from Rachel to her friend. Use my brother's information to plan a spa day for him. IDC. He is such a pushover. He will not even notice. It wasn't all fraud. It was premeditated. And that was proof. The same day, I received a call from a detective assigned to the case. We have enough to move forward with charges. Would you like to proceed formally? I requested him to grant me 1 day. That evening, my phone exploded. 27 missed calls. 41 messages. Mom. Ethan, please, we need to talk. It was just a mistake. She panicked. She's still your sister. Dad. You don't want to destroy her life over this. Rachel. You selfish guy. I'll lose my job, my apartment. You're doing this to your own family. It's funny how no one cared when I was losing pieces of myself for them. I waited one day. I then called the detective back. Can we pause the formal charge temporarily? He agreed, but he said it clearly. This doesn't go away. It just waits. That was when Mom made her move. She called me, her voice as delicate as silk across a razor. If you really want to fix things, come to the house. Let's talk face to face. Despite my better judgment, I went. I regretted it from the moment I stepped inside. Rachel sat on the couch with a blanket over her, as if she were the victim. Mom had the worried matriarch looking down to a science. Dad did not even get up. We just want to heal, Mom remarked. We? I inquired. We know you're hurt, but this is tearing the family apart. No, I replied. Rachel did that. Rachel's voice cracked. I didn't think you'd actually go to the cops. Who does that? Someone who's been pushed far enough, I said. Mom reached for my hand. Let's make this go away. We'll pay it back. You don't need the police. Funny, I said. Because you didn't offer that before they showed up. She jerked away as if I had slapped her. Dad finally spoke. You're not perfect either. You think this makes you some kind of hero? I stared him in the eyes. It makes me free. And then I left. Again. This time. For good. A week has gone. I received another call from the detective. We received a payment for the charges. Marked anonymous, but it came from a joint account under your parents' names. Would you like to press charges anyway? I thought for a long time. Then I replied, no. But then I added, not this time. But I want it on record. If she ever touches anything with my name again, I want her charged. He agreed, so I hung up. And with that, I was finished with them. There's no more money. No more guilt. No more walking into rooms and being invisible until someone wanted their phone bill paid. A new start. I relocated out of the state 2 weeks later. Small town, quiet, friendly landlord. Rent is half what I paid at home. I spent my first weekend putting together IKEA furniture and listening to old songs that I hadn't heard since college. I went grocery shopping and got what I wanted. I sat on my own couch, with coffee and a book, and no one knocked to ask for help. And for the first time in a decade, I realized I was only accountable for myself. But here's the kicker. 3 weeks into my new existence, I received a letter. Handwritten. There's no return address. Inside is a folded piece of paper and a checkbook. The paper stated, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I appreciate you taking the risk that I never would have taken. Luke. The check was for half of Mateo's bill. I smiled. He did not owe me anything. But he got it. And what about the rest? I never heard from them again. Not on my birthday. Not for Christmas. Not even when Dad underwent surgery later that year. I only found out after seeing a distant cousin's Facebook post. And you know what? Good. They had now experienced what it was like to live without me. I had finally learned to live without them. People say that blood is thicker than water. They forget the second half of this quote. But the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. In other words, chosen loyalty is more important than common DNA. And I learned this the hard way. The last time I saw my family's faces was the day I left the house, clutching the folder and feeling the burning in my chest. What happened since then? Not one word. And the stillness used to feel like punishment. Now it feels like air. A few weeks ago, I ran into someone from my hometown. A girl I attended high school with. She recognized me in the checkout line at the hardware store. Hey, didn't you used to be Rachel's brother? I paused and smiled. No. Just like that. There is no shame. Without hesitation. Because I am not Rachel's brother anymore. I am not a decent son. I am not the bank. I'm not the person who shows up when everyone else is gone. I'm me. And for the first time in 32 years, that is sufficient. They believed I couldn't survive without them. That I would crawl back. That I required their brand of love, their guilt trips masquerading as concern, and their control disguised as intimacy. They were wrong. I don't need Sunday dinners where I sit silently while others toast themselves. I don't need check-ins that are essentially setups for a request. I don't need to explain why I changed my phone number, relocated without a forwarding address, or didn't show up for Christmas. Let them ponder. Let them stew. Allow them to explain my absence to extended family, neighbors, and themselves. They are aware deep within themselves. They shoved me outside. And for once, I did not beg to return. Want to know the best part? They lost control the moment I stopped asking for love and instead demanded respect. Because people like that will use their families as weapons against you. However, the moment you disregard boundaries, they label you as cold, selfish, and broken. I am none of those things. I'm finally no longer theirs. And Rachel? She did not lose her job. She did not go to jail. But you know what? She did lose her mask. The entire family now understands what she did, how she lied, how she abused me, and how she laughed behind my back while draining me dry. And now no one trusts her. Luke exited the house. Aunt Lydia won't let her babysit anymore, Uncle Brian told me during a quick phone conversation. I didn't expect that. Rachel's name is mud at every family event. You don't need to come back, he told me. They're the ones who messed up, we all see it now. But I told him the same thing that I'll tell you. It doesn't matter who sees it. The question is who made it out alive. So I did. So, no, I am not going to pretend everything is wonderful. I am not going to send birthday cards or pick up because of guilt. I'm not going to come up to fake embraces and awkward potlucks so mom can make passive-aggressive statements about how difficult it is to keep families together nowadays. I'm no longer theirs. And it's the best thing that has ever happened to me. I wake up now, and there is tranquility. I work and keep whatever I earn. I eat whatever I want. I do not apologize for saying no. I don't flinch when my phone vibrates. I don't hold my breath around folks who say they love me. I am free. Not because they let me go. However, I ultimately quit waiting for their consent. Allow them to keep their leftover dinners. Allow them to pass around my photo as if I had died. Let them chatter. Let them beg, rant, twist the story, and label me the villain. I will still sleep like a baby. Because the truth is easy. When they closed the door on me, I did not lose any family members. They lost me. And that is the first bill that they will never pay. My family abandoned me at 17. With a note saying, "You'll figure it out." Now they want back in. Because I'm a millionaire. So I took them to court. When I was 17, my family moved 2 states away without informing me. They left a letter that read, "You'll figure it out." 12 years later, after I'd made it without them, they reached out to reconnect. When I was 17, I returned to a completely vacant house with a note on the kitchen counter. It was the cruelest thing I had ever read. It simply said, "You'll figure it out." I wasn't sure what I had done wrong. I assumed they were tired of pretending they liked me. But the truth was that they had never pretended. When I was 13, I cooked a birthday cake for my mother by myself, only to have her describe it as clumpy. At 15, I taught my brother through his finals, while he called me a know-it-all and slammed the door in my face. At 16, I gave my entire paycheck to my father so he could pay bills, but when I brought it up later, he raged at me because he felt I was useless. I was always useful but not liked. My parents and brother, my only family, had packed up and relocated 2 states away without informing me. I found out from the landlord a week later. They canceled the lease early, so I had a week to move out. I spent 3 nights at a friend's house before running out of places to go. Eventually, I was sleeping in the rear of a storage container that I had rented with my last savings. I snuck into the YMCA and showered, ate peanut butter with a spoon for breakfast, lunch and dinner, used free library computers to apply for employment, and pretended everything was fine. Eventually, I was recruited as a diner server for the night shift. The manager was stern but fair, and he paid me cash beneath the table until I could obtain an ID. She let me take a nap in the break room once when I was practically exhausted. I fought my way through it, purchased a prepaid phone, recorded every single receipt, and watched free YouTube videos on budgeting and goal planning. I barely survived my first year, but I got through it. The turning point came when a regular at the diner gave me a temporary job cleaning office files. It paid 3 times what I made. I said yes. That job led to another, then another. I learned quickly, arrived early, and asked questions. By the age of 22, I was working full-time as a freelancer. By the age of 25, I had started a consultancy firm for myself, using a folding table and a borrowed laptop. By the age of 27, I had 5 contractors under my supervision, my own office, and a customer list that encompassed companies I had never imagined. By the age of 29, I had officially achieved millionaire status. Not an important millionaire, not a fake-it-for-Instagram wealthy, but true savings, a retirement account, no debt, a paid-off apartment, and affordable health insurance. I cried the first time I saw my bank app hit 7 figures. During those difficult years, my family never contacted me once. My brother once appeared in a suggested friends list. He is now married, and still lives in the state where they disappeared. I stared at the computer for a long time, wondering whether he ever informed his wife about me, if he said I fled, or if he said nothing at all. Sometimes I wonder if hating them would have been easier. But truly, it was never hatred. It was heartbreaking. I go to therapy now because I want to remain intact. I've compiled a list of people who saved me when they didn't have to, including co-workers, classmates, and strangers who demonstrated what true support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I recorded about surviving family estrangement went viral. It surpassed 1 million views in 4 days. My email is full of notes of encouragement, thanks, and strangers telling me I've put voice to their grief. Then one email stood out. The subject line reads, "You're still our daughter." It was from my mother. There was no apology, just a paragraph about listening to my point of view and possibly talking. Then came another message, this time from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long time before shutting down the laptop. I sat with it and wondered whether mending entails looking back or forward. I didn't answer immediately. I needed time to process. My therapist, Melissa, suggested that I wait at least a week before making any decisions. "Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up," she advised throughout our session. "There's no rush to respond." So, I did. I concentrated on work, went to the gym, and ate dinner with friends. But those emails haunted me. I kept opening them, reading them, and then closing them again. My mother's reply felt cold and professional, as if she were writing to a distant acquaintance. My brother's was shorter but seemed more genuine. I could not quit thinking about them. After 10 days, I decided to respond to my brother first. Just something simple. I wrote to myself, "It's been 12 years. What changed?" Then I pressed submit before I could overthink it. He responded within an hour. He claimed the podcast made him comprehend what they had done. He claimed he was only 15 when they abandoned me, that he had no option, that he had always wondered about me, and that he had looked me up online a few times over the years but never had the confidence to contact me. He was happy to see me achieve it. I didn't buy it totally. If he was so concerned, why wait until I had achieved public success? I asked him just that. His subsequent email was longer. He revealed that money was tight for them, my parents' business had failed, his wife was expecting their second kid, and medical bills were piling up. I felt my stomach drop. That was the actual cause. I did not reply for another week. Then my mother sent a follow-up email with old family photos attached, including pictures of me as a newborn, us at the beach when I was about 5 or 6, and Daniel and I creating a snowman. Happy times that seemed to belong in someone else's life. She stated at the bottom of the email, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I shared Melissa's emails during our next session. She reminded me that I had control, that I could set limits, and that I owed them nothing. However, she said that closure, whether in the form of reconciliation or a final goodbye, would help me move forward. I nodded, but within I was conflicted. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part wanted to know why they abandoned me, and a tiny dumb part of me still wished they would love me. I planned to meet my brother first, with no parents. We planned to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, about halfway between our homes. I flew in the morning, booked into a hotel, and attempted to relax. I almost canceled 3 times, but at 2 p.m., I strolled into the coffee shop and noticed him right away. He appeared older and heavier, with a receding hairline, but his eyes remained the same. When he spotted me, he stood up awkwardly and unsure. I did not hug him. We just sat across from each other, holding our coffees like strangers. The first 20 minutes were spent making awkward small conversations about the weather, my travel, and his drive. Then he began apologizing. "Ava, I'm sorry," Daniel whispered, his voice cracking. "I was just a kid when it happened. I didn't know they were planning to leave you behind until it was too late. I was too scared to stand up to them." I simply listened, scanning his face for clues of dishonesty. He was earnest, but I had been duped before. I asked him the question that had been bothering me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I left behind? He looked down at his coffee. "They always saw you as the strong one. The independent one. The one who would be fine on your own. They thought you didn't need them as much as I did. They convinced themselves you'd be better off without them." That was the most ludicrous thing I had ever heard. I told him about the storage unit. Weeks of eating peanut butter, showering at the YMCA, and working night shifts at the age of 17. His face crumbled. "I didn't know," he muttered. "They told me you had a plan. That you wanted to stay behind. That you were going to live with a friend's family. That you'd chosen to separate from us." All falsehoods. By the end of our meeting, I didn't know what to think. He appeared truly sorry. He showed me images of his wife and children, explained his position as an accountant, and inquired about my business. He did not outright beg for money, which shocked me. He hugged me as we separated. I allowed him to hug me, but I did not reciprocate. I just stood there, arms by my sides, feeling nothing. Back at the hotel, I called Melissa and told her everything. She pointed out that while my brother appeared sorry, he was still portraying himself as a victim rather than admitting his role in my abandonment. She was correct. He was 15, not 5, old enough to pick up the phone, send an email, and check in on me after 12 years. That night, my mother called. I hadn't given her my phone number, so Daniel must have. I almost did not respond, but curiosity won out. Her voice sounded older and raspier. When I said hello, she burst into tears and began telling me how proud she was of me, how she had always known I would succeed, and how special I was. I allowed her to talk herself out. Then I asked her the same question I had asked my brother. Why me? Her response was different. We were in debt, Ava. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart enough to make it on your own. We figured you'd go to social services and get placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor. I hung up on her, blocked her number right away, threw my phone across the room, and screamed into a pillow. The next morning, I received an email from my father, our first contact in 12 years. He did not apologize. Instead, he wrote about how difficult their lives had been, about medical bills and failed businesses, about Daniel's wife needing surgery, and about their impending eviction. Finally, he asked if I could help the family. Not a single question about my life. Not a single acknowledgement of what they'd done. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line. And there it is. She called me immediately, despite it being Sunday. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them, about what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I emailed my brother, told him I was glad we'd met, that I understood he was in a difficult position when we were younger, that I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family but with clear boundaries. No money, no loans, no financial support of any kind, and no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. His response was immediate and telling. I'm really disappointed, Ava, he wrote. Our parents really need help. Families should support each other. You're being selfish with your success. All the guilt buttons they'd installed in me as a child pushed at once. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked an appointment with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space to process everything. 3 days later, Daniel called. Left a voicemail apologizing for his email. Said he understood my position. Said he still wanted a relationship on my terms. Said he'd respect my boundaries. I listened to it twice, trying to decide if he was sincere or just changing tactics. I decided to give him one more chance, but with my guard up. I went to Bali anyway. Spent 2 weeks on the beach, hiking through rice fields and meditating. I needed the distance. When I got back, I had 6 more emails from my dad, each more desperate than the last. I didn't read past the subject lines. I also had a text from Daniel, asking if we could talk again. I agreed to a phone call, nothing more. The call started okay. He apologized again for pushing. I've been thinking a lot about what you told me, he said. I'm in therapy now too. I believed that part. He sounded different and less defensive. We talked about his kids, about my business, normal stuff. Then he mentioned that our parents were coming to visit him next weekend, asked if I would consider meeting them just for an hour, in a public place. I felt my chest tighten. I'm not ready for that, Daniel. He pushed a little, but backed off when I got quiet. After we hung up, I called Melissa. We had an emergency session that night. She helped me realize I was afraid of seeing them, not because I hated them, but because I still craved their approval. Still wanted them to love me. Still wanted to be enough. It was pathetic, but it was true. I cried. For an hour in her office. The next day, Daniel texted again. Said our mom was crying all night after he told her I wouldn't meet them. Said our dad was talking about driving to my city anyway. I felt panicky. Blocked Daniel's number immediately. Then I called my assistant and told her I was working from home for the week, ordered groceries for delivery and basically hid in my apartment like a scared kid. On Wednesday, the doorman called up. Said there was a couple asking for me, wouldn't give their names. I knew instantly. Told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad. "Ava, we drove 8 hours to see you," his angry voice said. "You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain." I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I froze in bed, heart racing, checked the peephole. It was them, my parents, standing in my hallway like they had any right to be there. "Ava, please." My mom's voice came through the door. "We just want to talk to you." "We know you're in there," my dad added. "We love you. We're sorry." I didn't open the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, shaking. Eventually, they left. I called building security immediately, told them not to let those people up again. The guard sounded concerned and asked if I needed police. I said, "No. Just don't let them up." Then I called Melissa. She came over on her lunch break, brought me a sandwich, and sat with me while I cried. Told me I had every right to set boundaries, that I didn't owe them a meeting, that what they were doing was harassment, not reconciliation. After she left, I got an email from Daniel. He was furious. Said I'd humiliated our parents. Said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford because they were so desperate to see me. Said his wife needed surgery next month and they were hoping I could help. Said I was being cruel. I didn't respond. Friday morning, I decided I needed to leave town for a while. Booked a flight to visit my friend Rachel in Portland. She'd been one of the people who helped me when I was homeless and let me crash on her couch for a week when I had nowhere else to go. I trusted her completely. I was throwing clothes in a suitcase when my phone rang an unknown number again. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called. Said there was a woman downstairs having what looked like a medical issue. Said she was asking for me by name, claimed to be my mother. I felt sick. Told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down. He sounded uncomfortable but agreed. I finished packing and headed downstairs an hour later. Checked the lobby carefully before entering. No sign of them. I felt relieved, but also weirdly guilty. The doorman gave me a strange look as I passed. Told me the ambulance had come. That the woman had been having chest pains. That she'd been taken to Memorial Hospital. I nodded and hurried out to my waiting Uber. At the airport, I got another call from Daniel. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom had a heart attack," he was crying. "She's in surgery. This is your fault for stressing her out." I hung up on him, called Melissa instead. She answered immediately. I told her what happened. Asked if I was a terrible person. "Ava, listen to me," she said firmly. "You are not responsible for your mother's health. This feels like another manipulation tactic. Get on your plane and take care of yourself." I did. Spent the weekend with Rachel. Told her everything. She remembered when my family abandoned me. Remembered how broken I'd been. She was furious on my behalf. "They don't deserve a minute of your time," she said, pouring me another glass of wine. "Not after what they did to you." It felt good to have someone so firmly in my corner. Sunday night, I got an email from my dad. My mom was stable, had a stent put in, would be released Tuesday. The email ended with, "She's asking for you. Don't you think you've punished us enough?" I showed Rachel. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Told me this was textbook guilt tripping. I knew she was right. But part of me still felt responsible. I flew home Monday. Found flowers outside my apartment door. The card said, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday." No apology, no acknowledgement of boundaries. Just another demand. I threw the flowers in the trash chute. Tuesday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my mom in a hospital bed looking pale and small. The message said, "She might not have much time left. Do you really want to live with this regret?" I blocked the number. Called Melissa. She suggested I take a social media break, change my number, maybe even stay with a friend for a while. I agreed. Called my assistant and told her I'd be working remotely for 2 weeks. Packed another bag. Before I could leave, my doorman called again. Said there was a young woman downstairs asking for me. Said she had a small child with her. Said she claimed to be my sister-in-law. I felt cornered. These people wouldn't stop. I told the doorman to send her up. Decided to face this head on. The woman who knocked on my door looked exhausted. Had dark circles under her eyes. Was holding a sleeping toddler against her shoulder. "I'm Rachel," she said quietly. "Daniel's wife. I came alone because I wanted to talk to you without family drama." I let her in reluctantly. Offer her water. She accepted gratefully. Rachel put her sleeping daughter on my couch, tucking a blanket around her. Then she sat at my kitchen table and started talking. "I only learned about you 3 years ago," she admitted. "Daniel told me you ran away at 17, cut contact with the family. I always thought it was strange but never pushed. Hearing your podcast was a shock. I confronted him, and he finally admitted the truth. I just listened, not sure what to believe anymore." Rachel seemed sincere. "I'm horrified by what they did to you," she continued. "I insisted Daniel reach out, but I had no idea they were going to ask you for money. I'm embarrassed and angry about that. Yes, I do need surgery for a thyroid condition, but we have insurance. Your parents are the ones in financial trouble, not us." I asked her why she'd come. She looked me straight in the eyes. "You deserve to know the whole truth," she said. "Your parents have been telling everyone you abandoned the family, that you were mentally unstable, that you stole money from them before disappearing, that they spent years looking for you, all lies to cover what they'd done." I felt like I'd been punched. "How do you know this is true?" She pulled out her phone, showed me Facebook posts from years back. My mom asking for prayers to find her troubled daughter. My dad claiming I'd taken their savings before running away. Posts about hiring private investigators, about checking homeless shelters, all carefully crafted to make them look like victims, all dated years after they'd abandoned me. Rachel apologized for being part of it, even unknowingly. Said she'd confronted my parents too. That they'd admitted everything to her when she threatened to tell the whole family the truth. That they were desperate now because their lies were unraveling. That my podcast had people asking questions they couldn't answer. Her daughter woke up to a cute little girl with curly hair. "This is Lily," Rachel said softly. "She's 3. I have another daughter on the way. I want my children to know their aunt, but only if you want that too. No pressure, no guilt, just an open door if you ever choose to walk through it." After they left, I sat in my apartment for hours, processing. Called Melissa again, told her everything Rachel had said. She wasn't surprised. "Abusers often control the narrative," she explained. "They create alternate realities where they're the victims." She asked what I wanted to do now. I honestly didn't know. That night I got another email from my dad. This one was different, angry, and threatening. Said if I told lies about them online, they would sue me for defamation. Said they had proof I'd stolen from them. Said they'd go to the media with their side if I didn't take down the podcast and issue a public apology. Said they expected financial compensation for the damage to their reputations. I forwarded it to Melissa, then to my lawyer, Marcus. He called me immediately. "This is empty threatening," he assured me. "Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Save everything but don't respond. I'll handle it if they actually file anything, which I doubt they will. People who are actually going to sue don't usually announce it first." The next day I got a call from Daniel. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded panicked. "Ava, Rachel told me she visited you. Our parents are furious. They're saying terrible things about her now too. I'm scared they're going to try something desperate. Please call me back on Rachel's phone, not mine." I didn't know what to believe anymore. Called Marcus again. He suggested meeting Daniel and Rachel somewhere public, with him present as my lawyer just to hear them out. I agreed reluctantly. We set up a meeting at a restaurant near Marcus's office for the next day. They showed up on time. Both looked terribly stressed, exhausted. Rachel had a bruise on her arm she kept trying to hide. Daniel couldn't make eye contact. "I'm Marcus, Ava's attorney," he said as we sat down, which made Daniel flinch. But we sat down, ordered coffee, and they started talking. The story that came out was worse than I'd imagined. My parents had been living off Daniel for years, moving in and out of his house, taking money for emergencies, watching his kids while criticizing his parenting. When Rachel confronted them about me, my dad had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. Daniel had kicked them out. They were now staying in a motel, calling constantly, showing up at his work. I listened without interrupting, watched my brother break down as he described how our parents had controlled him his entire life. How they'd convinced him I abandoned them. How he'd been too scared to question their version of events. How he'd been trapped in their web of manipulation and lies for 12 years. How he was terrified they would hurt Rachel or the kids. Marcus asked careful questions about financial entanglements, about house titles and bank accounts, about whether my parents had keys to their house. Daniel answered everything. Said they'd co-signed his mortgage. Said his dad was still on his bank account from when he was in college. Said they had spare keys. Said they knew all his passwords. Marcus took notes, occasionally glancing at me. By the end of the meeting I felt drained but clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. Daniel and Rachel were victims too, in their own way different from me, but still trapped. Marcus suggested they speak to a lawyer of their own, gave them a colleague's card, told them to change their locks, passwords and bank accounts immediately. They nodded, looking overwhelmed but grateful. As we were leaving, Daniel hugged me. This time, I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A recognition that we'd both been damaged by the same people. Maybe we could help each other heal. That night, I got a series of increasingly unhinged texts from my parents' numbers, accusations, threats, guilt trips. I blocked them all. Then I called Rachel and asked if they were safe. She said yes. They'd changed the locks, stayed with friends the night before, were looking into a restraining order. I felt relieved but still worried. The next morning I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Rachel, hysterical. They broke into our house, she sobbed. They took Lily's baby photos, important documents, and Daniel's laptop. They left a note. Family matters should stay in the family. I told her to call the police immediately, said I'd meet them at their house. Called Marcus on my way. When I arrived, there was a police car outside their house. An officer was taking statements in the living room. The place was a mess, drawers pulled out, papers scattered. Daniel was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. Rachel was pointing out missing items to the officer. I introduced myself as family, there to help. The officer seemed skeptical that grandparents would break in. "Are you sure they didn't just use a key?" he asked. "Maybe this is a misunderstanding." Rachel showed him her bruised arm, told him about the escalating behavior, about the threats, about how they'd been stalking them. He took notes but didn't seem convinced. Said without evidence it would be hard to prove who did this. After the police left, we cleaned up together. Found more missing things, photo albums, financial documents, the spare key to their car. Daniel looked defeated. "This is my fault," he said. "I should have protected my family better. Should have stood up to them years ago. Should have looked for you harder." I didn't disagree, but I didn't pile on either. We were beyond that now. Marcus arrived as we were finishing. Looked around grimly. Said this changed things. That we needed to document everything. That breaking and entering was a serious crime. That we should all stay somewhere else for a few days. That he'd help us file for emergency restraining orders in the morning. We nodded, too exhausted to argue. Rachel packed bags for them while Daniel and I secured the house as best we could, changed locks again, checked windows and discussed security cameras. It felt surreal, taking these precautions against our own parents but also necessary. They'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. As we were leaving, Daniel got a text from our dad. Just 3 words. "We're watching you." He showed it to me, hands shaking. I took a screenshot, sent it to Marcus. Then I made a decision. Told them they were coming to stay with me. My building had security cameras, a doorman who already knew not to let our parents in. They accepted gratefully. That night, the 4 of us ate takeout in my living room. Lily played with toys Rachel had packed. We talked quietly about the next steps, about restraining orders, about police reports, about changing phone numbers and email addresses, about possibly moving to a new house, about how to protect ourselves long term. It wasn't the family reunion I'd ever imagined, sitting there with the brother who'd let me be abandoned, his wife who'd believed lies about me, and their daughter who was innocent in all of this. But somehow it felt right. Like we were finally facing the truth together. Like maybe, just maybe, we could build something new from the ashes of what our parents had destroyed. The next morning, Marcus called. Said he'd filed emergency restraining orders for all of us. Said we needed to appear in court next week to make them permanent. Said he'd also reported the break-in to a detective he knew who was taking it more seriously than the responding officers had. Said we should all stay together until this was resolved. I agreed. Called my assistant, told her I'd be working from home indefinitely because of a family emergency. She understood, rearranged my schedule. I set up a workspace in my guest room for Daniel, who also needed to work remotely. Rachel and Lily took over my living room, building pillow forts and watching cartoons. It was strange having people in my space. I'd lived alone for years, liked my quiet routines, my clean counters, my empty sink. But there was something comforting about the noise too, about Lily's laughter, about Rachel's quiet humming as she folded laundry, about Daniel's typing from the other room. It felt like family. Not the family that had abandoned me, but maybe the family we could become. That afternoon my doorman called up. Said there was a delivery of flowers. I told him to check the card before sending them up. He read it to me. "We know where you all are. This isn't over." I told him to refuse the delivery, and to call the police if the delivery person wouldn't take them back. Then I called Marcus again. He said he'd add this to our case file. That it strengthened our request for restraining orders. That we were doing everything right. I didn't tell Daniel or Rachel about the flowers. They were stressed enough. Instead I ordered extra groceries, made dinner for everyone, and played with Lily. Tried to create some normalcy in this bizarre situation. But that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen and finally let myself feel everything. The fear, the anger, the grief, the strange hope. I cried silently into a dish towel so no one would hear me. In the morning, Rachel found me making coffee. Asked if I was okay. I lied. Yes. She didn't believe me. Sat down at the counter. "It's okay not to be okay, Ava," she said gently. "I'm not either. Daniel cries in the shower where he thinks no one can hear. Lily keeps asking when we can go home. This whole situation is terrible, but I'm grateful we're facing it together." I looked at her. This woman I barely knew, who was somehow now part of my life. Asked her why she'd come to me that first day. Why she'd chosen to believe me over the family she'd known for years. She smiled sadly. "I've always felt something was off about your parents. About the stories they told. About the way they controlled Daniel. The podcast confirmed my suspicions. I couldn't let my daughters grow up thinking abandoning a child was ever acceptable." We hugged them. First time. It felt awkward but genuine. Like the beginning of something. Not friendship exactly, not yet. But understanding. Solidarity. A shared determination to break the cycle of mistreatment that had damaged us all. The next few days fell into a routine: working, cooking, playing with Lily, checking in with Marcus, jumping at unexpected noises, flinching when phones rang. Living in a strange limbo of domestic normalcy and underlying tension. We were safe, but not at peace. Together, but still healing. Family, but still learning what that meant. On Friday Marcus called with news. The detective had found evidence. Security footage from a gas station near Daniel's house showed our parents' car parked there during the time of the break-in. The restraining order hearing was set for Monday. He was confident we'd get approved. We all felt relieved, but still anxious. Still waiting for the next escalation. It came that night. A brick through Daniel's car window in the parking garage. No note this time. No need for one. The message was plain. The building security tape showed a man in a baseball cap, face carefully turned away from cameras. We couldn't verify it was our dad, but we all knew. Filed another police report. Added it to our case file. Tried not to let Lily know how afraid we were. Sunday night we sat together preparing a strategy for court. What to wear, what to say, what proof to bring. How to describe our family history without seeming crazy. How to make the judge realize the pattern of escalation. How to protect ourselves legally and physically. It was bizarre discussing our parents in this manner, like talking about strangers. Dangerous strangers who happened to share our DNA. As we talked, my phone pinged with an email notification from my mom. Subject line: last opportunity. I almost erased it unread. But something made me open it. It was short. Just one line. "If you go to court tomorrow, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." I showed it to Marcus, who'd stayed for dinner. He took a snapshot, added it to our file, and told me not to respond. Said this kind of threat would only strengthen our case. That night, none of us slept well. I kept checking my locks, listening for noises, wondering what my parents may do next. Wondering if we were overreacting. Wondering if we were underreacting. Wondering how my life had come to this point, from abandoned youth to successful businesswoman to hiding in my own apartment from the ones who gave me life. Monday morning arrived with a weird stillness. We dressed carefully, business casual, respectable, and trustworthy. Rachel arranged for a friend to keep Lily. We drove to the courthouse in separate cars, just in case. Met Marcus on the steps outside. He looked confident, suitcase in hand. Told us he'd handled dozens of cases like this. That the proof was good. The judges took threats seriously. that we'd be protected. As we stepped into the courthouse, I recognized my parents, standing near the entryway, looking older than I remembered, smaller somehow. My mom saw me first, made a move toward me. My dad grabbed her arm, held her back. They watched us pass. Didn't try to approach. Just started with a mixture of rage and something else. Something that could have been fear. We filed past them into the building, checked in at security, followed Marcus to the correct courtroom, sat together on a bench, waiting for our case to be called. I could feel my parents come behind us, could sense them seated on the opposite side of the room, could nearly hear their hushed talk. But I didn't turn around. Keep my eyes forward, focused on breathing. The judge called our case. We stood, marched forward, and took our places. Marcus presented our evidence calmly. The break-in, the threatening texts, the flowers, the brick, the email, the history of desertion and manipulation. The judge listened closely, asked clarifying questions, looked at our parents with increasing concern. When it was their turn, my parents approached the bench. No lawyer, just them. My dad spoke first, claimed we were exaggerating, that they were only wanting to reconnect with relatives, that they'd never broken any laws, that they loved us and wanted to make amends, that this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. The judge questioned the security footage, the menacing messages. My dad refuted everything, said it wasn't them on the camera, said their texts were being misread, said they were the victims here, not us. My mom nodded along, periodically blotting at her eyes with a tissue. Then the court addressed them directly about abandoning me at 17. My dad hesitated, started talking about troublesome kids, about difficult decisions, about doing what they thought was best. The judge cut him short and asked again, directly, "Did you leave your small child alone and relocate to another state?" My father looked down and mumbled something about financial trouble. The judge's expression darkened. After hearing from both sides, the judge approved our restraining orders. 3 years. No contact. Please avoid approaching our homes or offices. No messages from third parties. Any infraction would lead to immediate arrest. My parents appeared astonished, as if they couldn't comprehend what was occurring and had never faced consequences before. My mother called my name once, softly, as we exited the courtroom. I kept walking and didn't look back. I felt a weight lift with each step. Not healed. Not yet. However, this is only the beginning. The first tangible border that could not be breached without major consequences. Outside, Marcus shook all of our hands, saying we'd done well, that the orders were strong, that we should phone him right away if there were any infractions, and that he was proud of us for sticking up for ourselves. We thanked him, bewildered but relieved, like natural catastrophe survivors blinking in the sunlight. Daniel hugged me on the courthouse steps, a genuine hug this time. "I'm sorry, Ava," he murmured, his voice breaking. "For not protecting you then. Sorry for not finding you sooner. For trusting their lies. For reintroducing this chaos into your life." I hugged him back, telling him we'd be fine, that we had each other now, and that we could create something new and better. As we headed to our cars, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost did not check it. However, when I did, I felt a chill. It was a photograph of Lily at her friend's house, playing in the backyard, unaware that she was being observed. Below it, only 4 words. "This is not over yet." I quickly showed Daniel the text. His face turned white. He contacted Rachel, who was already on her way to pick up Lily, and I ordered them to meet us at my apartment. Then I contacted Marcus from the car, my hands trembling so much that I couldn't hold the phone. He urged me to forward him the text and drive straight home, that he'd call the cops and meet us there, and that this was a blatant breach of the restraining order. He encouraged me to remain cool but watchful. The drive back seemed to take forever, and I kept checking my mirrors, paranoid that my parents were following me. When I finally pulled into my building's garage, I sat in my car for a minute, just breathing, trying to get my poop together before facing Daniel and Rachel, who needed me to be strong right now. I found them already in my flat, Rachel clutching Lily as if she could leave, the poor kid looking confused and afraid, and Daniel pacing, running his hands through his hair repeatedly. I showed them the text. Rachel began crying, saying they had been monitoring her baby and that she would never forgive herself if something happened to Lily. Daniel wrapped his arms around them both, looking as determined as I'd ever seen him. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with 2 police officers, who took our statements, looked at the text, and made some calls. They said they'd send a patrol car to the friend's place to investigate, that they'd try to track the phone number, and that they'd enhance patrols surrounding my building. They said all the right things, but I could tell they didn't realize how dangerous my parents could be, how unpredictable and desperate they were. After the cops had departed, we sat in my living room, trying to figure out what to do next. Rachel proposed staying at a hotel with different names, while Daniel recommended driving to his cousin's house a few states away. I sat there, becoming angry by the minute. This was just bullshit. We had done everything legally, including going through all of the legal processes and obtaining restraining orders, yet they were still harassing us and controlling our lives via fear. I stood up abruptly. "I'm done running," I responded, "and hiding. I'm done having others determine how I live my life. They have already stolen my childhood. I'm not giving them my adulthood either." Daniel looked at me like I was insane. "What are you going to do?" I honestly didn't know, but I knew we couldn't keep living this way. That night we took turns keeping watch while the others slept. I took the first shift, sitting by my living room window, all lights turned out, observing the street below. Around 2 a.m., I noticed an automobile I knew from my father's old Buick, which circled the block 3 times before stopping across the street. I took shots with my phone and then awoke Daniel. We watched as our father sat in his car, peering up at my building, not approaching or technically breaching the restraining order. He was simply letting us know he was there, watching and waiting. In the morning, I gave the images to Marcus, who said it was alarming but not legally a violation because my father stayed in his car, away from the building. He said he'd keep documenting everything and would speak with the investigator again. I hung up, frustrated, since the legal system had limitations. Restraining orders were merely pieces of paper and they couldn't stop someone who was determined to harm you. Rachel and Daniel planned to take Lily to a hotel for a few days that had interior corridors and adequate security. I helped them pack, hugged them goodbye, and promised to check in every few hours. After they went, I sat in my empty apartment, feeling strangely tranquil, as if I'd reached a decision point and couldn't continue living in this limbo. I called Melissa, told her everything, and asked what she felt I should do. She remained silent for a moment before asking me a question that struck me deeply. "What do you really want from your parents?" Not what I didn't want, or what I was afraid of, but what I consciously desired. I realized I'd never really considered it that way. After we hung up, I wrote a list. What I wanted: to live fearlessly. To maintain a relationship with my brother and his family. I want to quit feeling accountable for my parents' conduct. To be free from the past. That list did not include reconciliation with my parents. There was no mention of forgiveness anywhere. Nobody seemed to understand why they did what they did. I simply wanted to be free from them. That afternoon, I did something crazier. I emailed my folks with a quick message. "I know you're watching my building, and I know you're not going to stop, so let's talk one more time. Tomorrow, noon, at the coffee shop on 8th Street. Just me. No cops. No attorneys. After that you'll leave us all alone forever." I pressed submit before I could change my mind. I did not tell Daniel, Rachel, Marcus, or Melissa. I needed to do this for myself. I wasn't stupid enough to believe that my parents would suddenly become rational, but I needed to confront them on my own terms. I needed to speak my piece. I needed to break the cycle once and for all. My father responded within minutes. "We'll be there. No threats or guilt trips, just confirmation." I spent the rest of the day mentally preparing, thinking about what I wanted to say, what I needed them to hear, and what boundaries I needed to set. That night, I slept unusually soundly, as if making a decision had relieved some of my stress. The next morning, I dressed properly, not to impress them, but to feel powerful and confident. I took an Uber to the coffee shop, arriving 15 minutes early, and chose a table in the rear corner where I could see the door, but was not immediately visible from the outside. I ordered a coffee I didn't really desire and sat there waiting, remarkably calm. They came at midday, looking older and exhausted than they did in court. My mother recognized me first and nudged my father. They moved gently, as if they were approaching a dangerous animal that may bolt. They sat across from me without saying anything. We just stared at each other for a long time, these strangers who were my parents and had influenced me in ways they'd never comprehend. I talked first. "I did not call this meeting to reconcile, give you money, or hear your excuses. I called it to make sure you understood one thing. It was over. You have lost. You have lost me not only in court. Daniel has been lost. You lost your grandchildren. We lost any possibility of including you in our lives. And if you won't accept it, if you keep chasing us, threatening us, and attempting to push your way back in, I will destroy you." My father began to interrupt. I raised my hand. "I'm not finished." Then I brought out my phone and showed them copies of all their threatening texts, Lily's photo and emails. "I have emailed copies to everyone in your life, including your family, church, neighbors, and employment. Everyone. Not yet. But I will. If you contact any of us again, visit our homes, or even mention our names to anyone we know." My mother started crying. "We simply want our family back. We made mistakes, but we deserve another opportunity. We're becoming old, and we do not want to die alone." I gazed at her for a long time. "You should have considered this before abandoning your 17-year-old daughter. Before lying to everyone about what you did. Before breaking into Daniel's home. Before you threaten your own grandchildren." That enraged my father. "You are ungrateful. You have always been challenging. You have turned your brother against us. You owe us because we raised you." I just laughed, right in his face. "Do you honestly believe you are entitled to gratitude? For doing the bare minimum as a parent? For 17 years before ditching me entirely? Do you believe I should be thanking you for your excellent parenting?" He sat there, red-faced and mute, with no response to that question. My mother was still crying, but I felt nothing. No remorse, no pity. Just a cold realization that these people would never change, never accept responsibility, and never be the parents I deserved. I stood to leave. "Here's your final warning. The next time you breach the restraining order, I won't simply phone the cops. I'll make sure everyone you know knows who you truly are. If you force my hand, I have the resources to make your life quite difficult. I do not want to do that, but I shall. I want to safeguard my family, my real family. Daniel, Rachel, Lily. The people I choose." As I went away, my mother yelled after me. "Do you truly dislike us so much?" I came to a stop and turned back. "I do not detest you. I don't feel anything for you. You are suddenly strangers to me. And that is your loss, not mine." I left that coffee shop feeling lighter than I have in years. I called Daniel from the sidewalk and told him everything. He was outraged at first that I'd met them alone, then worried that they'd retaliate, but ultimately glad that someone had finally stood up to them directly. He said he wished he'd had the confidence to do so years ago. I returned to my flat, grabbed a suitcase, and decided to stay with Daniel and his family at their hotel for a few days to ensure their safety. When I arrived, Lily ran to hug me. "Auntie Ava!" She called for the first time, and I almost cried. Rachel hugged me as well, saying she was proud of me and wishing I might finally find peace. Daniel simply squeezed my shoulder, no words needed. We spent the next few days in a strange limbo, waiting for my parents to make their next move, constantly checking our phones and jumping at unexpected noises. But nothing happened. No calls, texts, emails, or sightings of their car. Only stillness. After a week, Daniel and Rachel decided to return home, change all of their locks, install security cameras, prepare to sell their property, and begin looking for a residence closer to my city. I returned to my apartment, went back to work, and resumed my normal life. 2 weeks passed, followed by a month. Nothing from my folks. Marcus checked in on a frequent basis, stating that the detective had confirmed their return to their home state, that the restraining orders were still in effect, and that we should remain alert while moving forward with our lives. Slowly, we did. Daniel acquired a new job in my city, Rachel enrolled Lily in preschool, and they purchased a home 20 minutes from my apartment. Every Sunday, we had supper together and began to create new traditions, memories, and a new type of family based on choice rather than obligation. I kept expecting to feel something about my parents' grief, perhaps remorse or rage, but overall, I felt relieved, as if I'd finally let go of a huge burden I'd been carrying since I was 17, and that I could now focus on the future rather than the past. 6 months after the coffee shop confrontation, I received a letter which was forwarded through Marcus, keeping my address confidential. From my mother. I almost threw it away unread. But curiosity won out. It was brief, only a few paragraphs long. There were no excuses or requests this time. Just an admittance that they had badly harmed me, that they had failed as parents, that they understood why I wanted nothing to do with them, that they were seeking counseling, and that they would follow the restraining orders. They hoped that someday I might be willing to hear a proper apology, but understood if that day never happened. I showed it to Daniel, and he received an identical letter. We spoke about it over dinner that night. Whether it was genuine, whether it altered anything, and whether we could ever trust them again. We didn't draw any conclusions. We simply vowed to take things one day at a time, to prioritize our healing, and to safeguard the family we were creating. I keep the letter in a desk drawer. Not because I am prepared to forgive. Not because I want to reconcile. But because it represents something significant. My parents finally accepted my right to create boundaries, to choose who I allow into my life, and to define family on my own terms. Last week, Lily celebrated her 4th birthday. Daniel and Rachel encouraged me to help plan it, and we had it at my place, with balloons everywhere, a cake purchased from a fancy bakery, and presents stacked on the coffee table. Lily goes around in a princess gown, smiling. Rachel is snapping pictures. Daniel is barbecuing on my balcony. Friends came by during the day, so much noise, so much joy. At one point, I moved into the kitchen for a moment alone, just looking through the doorway as Daniel swung Lily around in circles, Rachel laughing at something a friend said, and my apartment, which had previously been empty and quiet, filled with life and love. I recalled the message on my kitchen counter 12 years ago. You'll figure it out. And I did. Not the way they intended. But I had figured out what family should be, what love should be, and what I had always deserved. I am not suggesting that everything is perfect now. I still have trust difficulties, go to therapy every week, have occasional nightmares about being abandoned, and flinch when my doorbell sounds unexpectedly. But I, and we all, are mending. Creating something new from the broken bits of our history. Something stronger, something picked, something real. People sometimes question if I'll ever reconcile with my parents, if I'll ever allow them to see Lily, and if I'll ever forgive them for what they did. I don't have answers to such questions yet, perhaps someday, maybe never. But I know this. I am no longer defined by what they did to me. I am characterized by what I built afterward. By the person I decided to become. By the family I choose to make. My seal accused me of being ungrateful after a trip with my brother, claiming I owed her thanks for babysitting her own kids. My 22F brother, 35M, surprised me 6 months ago by planning a trip to Scotland for my birthday. He knew I've never traveled before and wanted to take me to my dream country. Due to tight finances, it was just the two of us, which I was okay with since at the time him and I were close. For context, my brother is married and has 2 kids under 6. His wife, 34F, had said she was happy for me and didn't mind holding down the fort for a week while we're on the trip. Her and I have never been close and quite frankly just tolerate each other for the sake of keeping the peace. She's never been a fan of how close my siblings are with each other. It all comes down to growing up in different family dynamics, emo. Anyway, the trip was amazing and I loved every second of it. I was on such a high when we came back that I thanked my brother so many times for doing this for me until he told me to shut up. Lol, I thought everything was good and we resumed our lives normally. Imagine my surprise when I get a text 3 days after coming back from my SIL telling me off and calling me rude and ungrateful cause I didn't send her a text thanking her for babysitting on her own and having to do everything around her house for a whole week while I had fun with her husband. Yep, that's exactly how she worded it. I was flabbergasted. This is the same woman who smiled and told me to have fun on my trip, and now she's berating me for not thanking her for doing me a favor by taking care of her kids for a week. Am I crazy, or is that totally irrational and just weird? I told her I'm not sure taking care of your own children is babysitting, or doing someone else a favor, and she blew up at me calling me a terrible ungrateful brat and that I never show appreciation for anything. I was so confused by all of this and called my brother, but he doubled down and told me the trip wouldn't have been possible had she not volunteered to take care of their kids so we can have fun, and that I should be thanking her for doing it for me. I was and still am confused on why I need to thank a mother for taking care of her own kids. Anyway, to keep the peace I told her thanks for doing it, but she decided I wasn't being sincere and convinced my brother to go low contact with me. My siblings and my mom were confused by all of this but kept telling me to just bite my tongue and not stir the pot any further. But I'm just hurt and confused. My relationship with my brother has been strained since and it's taking a toll on me. I just need outside opinions cause I'm genuinely confused on whether or not I'm the asshole in this whole mess. This is my first time posting and English is not my first language, so excuse any errors. Edit. I can't reply to everyone, so let me clear up a few things I feel I should have included. They do not share finances. She has never spent any money on anything related to me. Also, last year she took a trip with her siblings abroad as well, and no, I don't know if her siblings thanked my brother for watching his kids. Finances were tight as my brother was paying out of his own pocket and wouldn't have been able to take anyone else with us. This trip was a birthday gift, not a family trip, so no one expected to join. I did thank them both when I was first told about the trip, and I asked my brother if he was sure it was okay for us to go, and he assured me we were set and I only needed to have fun. I later learned that she didn't contribute anything to the trip and said she wouldn't have wanted to take a trip with me anyway. Hope this clears something's up. Update. 5 days later. Thank you to everyone for the insight on my previous post. The post kinda blew up in a way I wasn't expecting and the responses were overwhelming, but I now understand that I did not react correctly to her texts. This is a long update since a lot has happened. To clear up a few things before I continue with the update, a lot of you are fixated on the fact that I said finances are tight. I didn't mean their overall finances. They have separate finances, and from my understanding, they only share finances when it comes to their household and kids. Anything else they pay from their own pockets and don't interfere in what they spend their money on as long as the kids are good and household is running smoothly. So since my brother was paying for this trip on his own, he couldn't take many people with him as that would put a bigger financial burden on his personal savings. They're doing fine financially. They take family trips once a year. I did thank them both when I was initially told about the trip. My Sil later made a snide comment about how this was all my brother and she didn't contribute to the trip at all. Last year Sil and her siblings went on their own trip while my brother took care of everything and he was fine with it. My family dynamic is apparently confusing you guys, but we're 5 siblings that are very close and hang out regularly and have a close bond with our mom, especially since our dad passed away. We are from an Asian country and the culture here and the bonds between families are different from the West. To those who said maybe she's salty, I'm getting a trip when I've never helped them out. I babysat my Sil's babies for 5 days a week for months each time her maternity leave ended. And each time they stopped needing me to help out, only my brother thanks me, and that's fine with me. Sil has never thanked me or my siblings for anything we do for them. She says the fact that we're so eager and willing to drop everything to take care of each other is weird and unhealthy. I did thank her once I realized I should just keep the peace and tell her what she wanted to hear. Still, she didn't accept my thank you after I made the babysitting your own kids comment. I understand I was an for saying that now, since a lot of you have pointed out that it was rude and that I'm not a mother and don't get it. But to be fair, her texts were full of insults. She kept doubling down on the fact that she was stuck babysitting because of me. Many of you asked why I wasn't offered the ticket and went on my own. In our culture, women, especially young ones, don't travel on their own without either a family member or their husbands. It's not about control but more out of protection for us, so going on my own wouldn't have been an option. On to the update. Strap in, this is a long one. So I talked with my mom to better understand the situation, since many of you said I'm not a mother and don't get it. And she said my Sil worded it wrong, but maybe she just wanted gratitude for helping my brother out, cause being a parent isn't easy. I understand that I reacted to her messages wrong when I could have just said a simple thank you, but neither I or my mom understand why she was so aggressive towards me in her texts. The aggression is what made me become so defensive. I found out from my siblings and my mom that my brother only paid for the tickets and the accommodations, and that my eldest brother is the one that provided the pocket money for food and buying stuff on the trip, and that my siblings chipped in but didn't want the credit since my brother wanted this trip to be like a thank you for helping them out so much with their kids over the years, and that he had cleared it with his wife and she had given him the go-ahead. She also told me that he had asked Sil if she wanted to come with us on the trip and leave their kids with my mom, who was fine with that. But she declined as she and I aren't close and it would have been weird for the both of us. My mom told me that my brother actually asked her to check in every day with Sil to make sure all was well and to see if she needed anything. She also said my brother asked Sil's sisters to check on her as well. It turns out Sil had taken the week off of work. I didn't know that. And for 4 out of the 7 days we were in Scotland, she dropped her kids off at my mom's, and the other 3 days when my mom called, Sil said she had her sisters with her and didn't need any help. So what the hell was she so mad about? It's clear to me that she wasn't abandoned by my brother as some of you suggested. My siblings initially wanted to just keep the peace, but after I showed them my Sil's text, they were surprised and appalled by her words. They thought this whole thing was a simple misunderstanding and now understand that it had become bigger and that my brother and I aren't talking. My sister decided to investigate and called my brother to understand what happened, and it turns out my Sil told him that my mom and siblings didn't check in on her at all, which is a lie. My sister even dropped off food for them twice. And that the kids were upset their dad left them and were throwing tantrums all the time, also probably not true. And that this wasn't what they had agreed on when he told her about the trip months ago. He was too busy trying to calm my Sil down to confirm with the family whether or not it was true. My sister then asked him if he'd seen the text his wife had sent me, and he said he hadn't, but that Sil told him she just asked me for a simple thank you for all her hard work, and that I blew up at her and told her she didn't deserve anything since she didn't pay for the trip and that she was entitled. He said he was hesitant about believing that since he knows I'd never outright disrespect someone like that even if I don't get along with them, but she insisted that it happened and that she had no reason to lie, and as her husband she needed his support, not his questioning, and that's why he sent me the text saying I needed to thank her. My sister then let my brother know about everything that happened and told him, more like demanded, that they apologize to me, which I didn't think was necessary. I just wanted my brother to talk to me again, and he sounded upset and told her he'll figure this out after talking to his wife. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. Sil and my brother had a massive fight and he demanded to know why she lied and caused so much drama, and she broke down and told him that he was too close to me and my siblings and that she hated how the whole family babied me, I'm the youngest, and that his siblings' relationship with each other made her uncomfortable and she just wanted him to put a little distance between himself and us because her family isn't as close to each other, and kept telling her our close dynamic is weird and toxic. He told her her behavior is unacceptable and that she caused a rift between not only him and I but also him and the rest of his siblings as well because now they're mad at him. My brother did call me and he apologized for doubling down on what his wife said. He said it was already tense in their house and he was just trying to keep the peace and be supportive, but he shouldn't have treated me this way. When deep down he knew I wasn't at fault. He also let me know that for the time being Sil will go NC with my siblings and I while they go to marriage counseling and Sil goes to therapy cause her behavior wasn't normal. He sounded exhausted and defeated and I just told him we're all here for him if he needs us. He made it clear that the NC is only for my Sil and assured me he won't limit his contact with me and apologized for doing so without even talking to me first. I asked him if he'd like me to reach out to her and apologize for what I said and give her a sincere thank you, but he said no, that it was never about the gratitude to begin with and that it's apparently a bigger issue between them that they need to figure out on their own, that we shouldn't contact Sil unless she reaches out first as she doesn't want to have any contact with us. He also apologized for her language with me on the text, but I told him not to worry about it. Safe to say Sil's relationship with us is never going to be the same again after this, and to be honest I wasn't the biggest fan of hers, but I was civil and polite to her in the past cause my brother loves her and we've never had any issues prior to this. I do feel really guilty that all this happened because of the trip planned for me, but my siblings keep telling me it's not my fault. My mom says I should have just thanked my Sil and kept the peace instead of having this all blow up so much, but my siblings told her that even if I had apologized it wouldn't have mattered as my Sil would have found something else to cause a problem. But they also told me what a lot of you had mentioned in the comments, that saying thank you was the polite thing to do, and that taking care of kids full-time is not the same as babysitting them for a few hours, and it would have been good to tell her she's appreciated. But they understand that I don't have the understanding of what it means to be a parent and that having someone basically verbally attack me wouldn't have made me reciprocate with kindness. And I get it, I was ignorant about it and I acknowledge that. There are a lot more details, but that's the gist of it. Brother and Sil's marriage is strained and so is his relationship with us, but I hope that everything works out okay. I really love my brother and hate seeing him so defeated. Part of me wishes we never went on that trip because all this drama is draining. To clarify something, the only reason I was questioning the whole "I babysat my kids as a favor to you" is because I always see people criticizing fathers who say that and calling them out because kids are the parents' responsibility and not a chore or a favor for anyone. I thought this applied to both mothers and fathers, but perhaps I was mistaken because my only point of reference on this topic is what I see on the internet as I'm not a mom, and since a lot of you have said I'm the AH and that she deserved a thank you and a gift. I messed up the thank you part, but I did buy her a magnet for their fridge since she likes to collect them. I went a little crazy and brought back little souvenirs for myself and everyone else as well, and it would have been weird and rude to give her kids gifts and not her, so I got every single family member a small Scottish-themed present. I was excited about being in Scotland, lol. Thank you all for your insights and advice. I really appreciate it whether you thought I was or wasn't the AH. All your opinions put things into perspective for me. Some comments were outright nasty though, and I didn't think name-calling was productive or necessary, but oh well, that's the internet. Also, if you saw the OG post on some podcast sub, it's because my friend saw my post and told me to post it there cause she's a fan of them and thinks the podcasters would be entertained by it. I wasn't seeking out validation from a different sub, she was just excited by the idea that her favorite podcast might read out a post about someone she knows. She's weird but I love her so I did it, that's all. Am I the asshole for telling my grandfather my family treated me as an outsider at Thanksgiving, causing him to cut off their financial support? On Thanksgiving morning, as I awoke in my Chicago apartment, the customary fear crept into my heart. Another year brings another family reunion. This year's event took place at the Breakers, a premium resort hotel in Palm Beach, Florida. It was our yearly family trip, and my grandfather covered all expenses. I sighed deeply as I finished checking my suitcase. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I'm Helen Walker, a 33-year-old research director at a pharmaceutical business making $160,000 per year and living alone in Chicago. I've progressively increased my assets through diligent investing. Money is necessary, but dignity is far more valuable. My grandfather's words rang through my thoughts. He is a great businessman who built his money on building. He taught me everything I know about financial management. He has been enthusiastically teaching me about investing and asset management since I was a child. He's the only one in the family who fully understands me. In stark contrast is my sister Catherine, a former flight attendant who is now a full-time housewife. She appears to be well off, living with her husband and 7-year-old kid. However, this lifestyle would be impossible to maintain without our grandfather's monthly support. Their hefty mortgage payments, auto loans, and daughter's private school tuition are all covered by grandfather's assistance. Catherine's social media feed is still loaded with gorgeous images about new designer bags, costly dinners, and luxurious vacations. She seemed obsessed with depicting a lifestyle that is distant from reality. My parents are similar. George and Margaret look to be living a pleasant retirement in Florida, but that too would be unsustainable without grandfather's assistance. Their retirement fund planning, the deposit for the posh retirement home, it all rests on grandfather. My parents have always been chilly to me yet indulgent to my sister. That has not altered since childhood. During my undergraduate years, I used scholarships to pay for my tuition and worked part-time to supplement my income. Meanwhile, my sister relied solely on our parents for everything, from studies abroad to living expenses. The disparity is a terrible memory. Another of grandfather's sayings was, "Become someone who can stand on their own 2 feet." I lived by those principles, studying and worked tirelessly to achieve independence. I made a profession in the pharmaceutical sector, increased my assets through investments, and created a life that does not require anyone's assistance. My own hard work paid for the high-rise flat with a view of Chicago's cityscape. Moderate luxury within my means is the lifestyle I've chosen. As I lifted my bag, my uneasiness about this year's Thanksgiving increased. Every year, our family's warped relationships worsen. My sister's competition for appearances, our parents' prejudiced adoration, and grandfather's concerned expression. In the taxi to the airport, I thought about this year's trip. The Breakers, a prominent 5-star hotel founded in 1896, features Italian Renaissance architecture and magnificent suites costing more than $800 per night. The Thanksgiving special supper was estimated to cost $200 per person. Despite the opulent surroundings, our family's reality was weak and skewed. My sister's lavish lifestyle and our parents' comfortable retirement were all castles constructed on the sand of grandfather's approval. This year, those misconceptions were about to hit their limit. Everyone must have observed, but no one dared to speak about the truth that awaited us. On Thanksgiving Day, Florida's warm sunlight streamed through the taxi window from Palm Beach International Airport to the Breakers. I arrived at the luxury resort in good weather. I was the last to arrive. I strolled inside the gorgeous Italian Renaissance-style edifice, carrying my navy Rimowa luggage. My basic yet lovely theory dress had wrinkled somewhat from the lengthy travel. The lobby extended out into a neat, respectable area. Luxurious chandeliers gleamed above, as footsteps echoed silently on the marble floor below. Other visitors had already begun to enjoy their Thanksgiving afternoon in their own unique ways. On my way to the front desk, I saw my folks. They appeared to be discussing something in a quiet corner of the foyer. Mother wore what appeared to be a new resort dress, while father dressed casually and appropriately for his age. They averted their gaze as soon as our eyes met. "Miss Walker, I apologize, but I cannot find your reservation," the front desk staff replied sheepishly. They continued examining the screen, unable to conceal their astonishment. "I can see the reservations for your family members, but..." At that point, the sound of expensive heels approached. I turned to find Catherine approaching us with a proud look, a Hermès Birkin bag on her arm, and a Cartier watch shining. "Oh, Helen finally made it," her voice was deliberately sarcastic. As other customers focused their attention on us, the front desk workers proceeded to examine the system. "How strange that there's no reservation," Catherine continued, her voice rising in volume, evidently intended to attract attention. Her Louis Vuitton suitcase stood out in comparison to my blue case. "Actually," Catherine drew closer with a triumphant smile, "I only made reservations for our family." Her words resonated around the foyer. "A room for me, my husband, and daughter, and one for mom and dad. Just for the real family, you see." A minute of quiet occurred. The front desk personnel were speechless, and our parents turned away even farther. The air around me seemed frozen. I took a slow deep breath and said without changing my expression, "I see. Then I'll leave." My voice came out more calmly than I expected. I adjusted my grasp on the suitcase handle and pleasantly nodded to the front desk workers. I took out my smartphone and launched the taxi-hailing app. Wait, Catherine's voice increased slightly, but I was already about to exit the foyer. Feeling the front desk staff's sympathetic look, I began strolling toward the entrance. My sister, despite being caught off guard by this unexpected event, maintained a triumphant grin. Our parents stood uncomfortable and frozen in place. Only my footsteps resonated through the hushed lobby. The afternoon sunshine coming through the main door seemed unusually bright. While waiting for the taxi, the palm trees swung in the gentle breeze. The Thanksgiving weekend I had planned to spend at this luxurious resort had come to an end in a matter of minutes. However, in this moment, a peculiar sense of release washed over my emotions. Grandfather's words resurfaced. Become someone who can stand on their own 2 feet. I felt like I now understood what he meant. During the few minutes I waited for the taxi, I looked at the hotel's stunning facade. The Adam-style architecture recounted the story of nearly a century of history. Luxury cars decorated lavishly for Thanksgiving continued to arrive, accompanied by well-dressed families. Through the lobby glass, I could see my niece, Amy, in a costly dress that was inappropriate for a 7-year-old. She was fidgeting behind her mother, possibly searching for me. Every Thanksgiving, it was my tradition to bring her a gift. This year, I had prepared a pearl hair clip, which was still well wrapped in my suitcase. As I entered the waiting taxi, I informed the driver, Palm Beach International Airport. On my smartphone, I was already looking for the next available flight to Chicago. Though airfares were high during Thanksgiving, this did not concern me at all. Rather, the emotional energy I'd squandered each year over this season appeared far more costly. The Breakers building appeared smaller in the rearview mirror. Its form, glistening in the afternoon sun, seemed to represent our family's apparent glamour. And suddenly the first break had emerged in the facade. I had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was certain, there was no going back. The taxis inside created a peaceful environment away from the outside noise. The air conditioning maintained a pleasant chill, and the luxury leather chairs gradually relieved the stress from earlier. Outside the window, Palm Beach's characteristic resort panorama flowed past, with neatly aligned palm trees, white luxury mansions, and occasional glimpses of the Atlantic's shimmering surface. Views that would typically captivate me seemed curiously distant. I pulled out my smartphone and dialed my grandfather's number without hesitation. The ringtone appeared to last longer than normal before he eventually responded. "Helen, what is wrong?" Grandfather's voice maintained its customary calm. "I have something to report," I said, speaking in a straightforward manner. I described the events at the hotel without emotion, just the facts. The missed reservation, Catherine's words, and how I left. I described everything chronologically. On the other end of the telephone, I could hear Grandfather's breathing becoming slightly rougher. He was definitely able to contain his rage. However, I added no words of condolence. "I understand. I'll handle this from here," said Grandfather, his voice low and husky. In those simple remarks was a foreshadowing of what was to come. Shortly after hanging up, incoming calls began to come in. First, Catherine reported over 10 missed calls in 15 minutes. "Helen, Amy wants to see you. She was looking forward to our yearly Thanksgiving. Can't you consider a child's feelings?" Her text continued. "My friends are coming to dinner tonight. I had planned to share a great family Thanksgiving photo on Instagram. Do you understand how uncomfortable this scenario is?" Catherine's voice became increasingly frantic. Between these calls, we started receiving emails from our parents. "We could have created another room," Mother wrote, "but as Catherine mentioned, we prioritize our genuine family. Are you independent now?" Father's email was even more inhumane. "Catherine has a family, a husband and a child. You understand, correct? Can't you just put up with it for Thanksgiving?" The following email contained spiteful calculations. "That's always been your problem, only thinking about yourself, never considering the family." Mother continued, her tone making me appear like the villain. "We had everything scheduled for social media updates. We were meant to take beautiful photographs of you and Amy. Everything is ruined now." My chest clenched as I read each message, but these were phrases I should be used to by now. My sister and I have been subjected to this type of bigotry since we were children. As the taxi approached the airport, a new wave of messages flooded in. "Amy is crying because you are selfish. She had been waiting so long to see her aunt," Catherine wrote, still using her daughter as a shield. Behind her words, I simply saw vanity and pride. Mother sent additional sarcastic emails. "Poor Catherine. If you understood how concerned she is about Amy's future, you'd understand. However, children's education requires money." However, at this moment, I felt no need to respond. If anything, I was relieved that they had displayed such obvious real colors. Just before we arrived at the airport, grandfather sent us an email. "I am proud of your decision. I understand everything." When I heard those words, my eyes welled up with quiet resolve rather than despair. It represented the start of a new chapter. My smartphone continued to get repeated calls. Anxious messages from Catherine demanding, "Answer the phone right away." Accusatory emails from my parents alleged, "Your selfishness is tearing the family apart." However, I had already reached a point where no one's voice could reach me. I got out of the taxi and started heading toward the international terminal. While purchasing my travel to Chicago, I had a peculiar feeling of emancipation. This was the moment of liberation from the bogus, real family. About 30 minutes after boarding the plane heading for Chicago, grandfather sent a new email. All family members were among the awardees. "The following is my final decision to be announced," grandfather began the email in his usual dignified tone. "On Thanksgiving, an incident occurred that severely harmed our family's dignity. The callous treatment of Helen is an insult to the Walker family name and cannot be permitted under any circumstances. I am immediately freezing all financial support for George, Margaret and Catherine. I must remind you that your opulent lifestyles are completely dependent on my assistance. Those who have lost sight of family's essence, wallowing in vanity and pretense, are no longer eligible for such privilege." Just as I finished reading, calls from my sister started rolling in. Her worry was clear from the frequency of incoming calls. "Helen, please answer the phone. Convince Grandpa," she said. Messages left on voicemail documented my sister's panicked voice. It was obvious that her life would become untenable without the monthly payments. All of her living expenses were based on grandfather's monthly support of $30,000. Emails from our parents also poured in. Their earlier arrogance vanished, replaced by pathetic pleading. "Helen, this is about our retirement. Could you please talk to your grandfather again? The $150,000 deposit for their booked luxury retirement home would be forfeited, and their medical insurance benefits would be discontinued." Our parents appeared to be panicked by the prospect of their retirement security crumbling in an instant. "Do something, he'll listen if it's you, won't he?" Mother's email included unusual words of remorse. "I'm sorry for saying such terrible things earlier, but this is a family crisis." I silently turned off my smartphone. A large sea of clouds stretched outside the window. The beautiful family Thanksgiving images that had been shared on social media year after year would not be uploaded this year. Catherine may suffer a greater blow than the financial consequences. The jet was flying steadily into Chicago with no turbulence. The individual next to me appeared to be planning Thanksgiving dinner, reviewing recipes on their smartphone. Normally, at this point, I would have been in the hotel lounge giving Amy her present. When I arrived in Chicago and connected to my house Wi-Fi, I saw over 100 unread messages. Most were from my sister, and their content became increasingly frenzied. "What am I supposed to do? I won't be able to pay the loans. What about Amy's school fees?" Emails from our parents had also become extremely serious. "We might not be able to get the retirement home deposit back. What are we supposed to do now? I can't sleep at night thinking about the medical insurance." However, what grabbed the most attention was grandfather's final notice, which was distributed to all family members. "This measure is irreversible. Consider it the consequence of your own actions. Any objection to my decision will result in the termination of all remaining support." I calmly read the incoming mails. Their previously disdainful demeanor had entirely turned into desperate appeals. Never before has each family member's genuine nature been displayed so vividly. I set down my smartphone and brewed tea in the kitchen. By now, I should have been enjoying the hotel's sumptuous dinner, a $200 Thanksgiving special course per person. Remembering that sum made me smile somewhat. Every year, my sister's family would post about this opulent supper on social media, despite the fact that they were struggling to make monthly credit card payments. A second call arrived, this time from my sister's husband. Words condemning his wife's spending habits were mixed in with the panic and perplexity. It appeared that fissures were forming in their marriage as well. Our parents sent more detailed pleas. The retirement home won't refund the $150,000 advance payment. Medical insurance will be self-paid from next month. Because of you, our retirement. Following those statements, he repeatedly defended my sister and criticized me. It was as if they had learned nothing. I pulled a lemon out of the refrigerator and put it in my tea. Tomorrow, I will go back to work as usual. The pharmaceutical company's initiative anticipated further study of data analysis. A $160,000 annual salary and steadily accumulating investment trusts, a solid life foundation developed via my own labor. The night panorama of Chicago from outside the window gleamed silently. The lights of the high-rise buildings resemble stars. Suddenly, I remembered my credit card statement. Full payment every month, moderate luxury within my means, and no debt. Grandfather's favorite saying came back to me. Vanity is for others. Savings are for yourself. In this city, I had carved myself my own path. As grandfather mentioned, I had matured into a self-sufficient individual. And now I was convinced that I had made the proper decision. Incoming calls continued to ring on my smartphone, but the voices were no longer audible to me. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, in early December, Chicago had its first snowfall. Days were spent absorbed in new initiatives at the pharmaceutical company's lab. Despite the monotony of the everyday routine, my family's condition has changed dramatically. The alterations were initially visible on social media. My sister's Instagram, which had been updated virtually every day, had suddenly gone silent. Her most recent image, from the day before Thanksgiving, was a shot of her Hermes purse at an exclusive restaurant, along with the hashtag dream lifestyle. The compliments, "What a wonderful life," now appeared terribly sarcastic. Father's emails eventually expressed genuine regret. "I'm reflecting on our years of extravagant living. We spoiled Catherine too much, and we were cold to you. I'm sorry." Similar messages arrived from mother. With their medical insurance subsidies removed, they were suddenly aware of the true expense of healthcare. "Our pension alone is nowhere near enough." I finally understood how luxurious we were living. Catherine's position was far more severe. I got an unexpected call from her spouse. "I've discovered hidden debts she kept secret. I'm shocked by the credit card bills. We can't maintain this lifestyle anymore." With grandfather's backing abruptly withdrawn, their opulent facade crumbled. "We're considering moving to a cheaper house, looking at public schools for Amy too," according to him. His voice was filled with tiredness and resignation. "Catherine cries every night." Their marriage itself appeared to be in peril. In comparison, my life has stayed quiet. I arrived at work at 8 a.m. He returned home at 6 p.m. Weekends were spent attending financial study groups, revising my savings strategies, and living within my means. I was just elevated to team leader for a new research project. My pay is likely to improve steadily. Investment trust activities are progressing smoothly, with no concerns for the future. Grandfather's words resonated in my mind. Vanity brings momentary satisfaction, savings bring lifelong peace of mind. The weight of grandfather's comments was now felt strongly by the entire family. While my parents were concerned about retirement and security, and my sister was struggling with debt payback, I was simply living my normal life. Over the last 2 weeks, the number of emails and phone calls has substantially decreased. The urgent contacts that arrived daily during the first few days have reduced to once or twice a week. Their content, too, was rapidly turning towards resignation. Amy will be transferring to public school. She'll take the school bus. My sister's most recent email demonstrated symptoms of embracing reality. The idyllic private school existence she had shared on social media would never be seen again. Our parents were also thinking about moving from their luxury Florida neighborhood to a cheap condominium since they were having trouble paying their medical bills. Their fantasy of a comfortable retirement had fallen quickly. "We've been living with wrong values for years." That was written in Father's most recent email. It was unclear whether this awareness would serve as a catalyst for the restoration of actual family relationships. Last week, I received a simple email from grandfather. "Awakening to the truth of life sometimes brings pain, but it's necessary pain. Your decision gave them an important lesson." I didn't respond. I quietly saved the email. New stars twinkled in the cold sky over Chicago. 3 months after Thanksgiving, early indications of spring began to surface in Chicago. My life had not altered, rather, it had gotten more meaningful. The new project at the pharmaceutical company was going well, and last week I received word of another promotion. My achievements as research director were recognized, and my compensation was raised to $200,000. Investment trust activities were likewise performing well, with assets increasing steadily. From my office window, I could view the wide surface of Lake Michigan. The waves sparkled in the spring sunlight, conveying a peaceful hope. New research data was piling up on my desk. My most valuable time was spent working. Grandfather recently sent me a simple pearl necklace for my birthday. The attached card contained a single phrase in his usual, exquisite handwriting. "True brilliance dwells in those who stand on their own feet." I'd started having little touch with my folks. They'd relocated from their upscale Florida community to a more inexpensive condominium. Despite their struggles with medical bill payments, they appeared to be gradually adjusting to reality. Luxury brings momentary joy, but there's genuine security in a grounded lifestyle. Mother wrote in an email showing genuine understanding for the first time. My sister's family had relocated to a typical suburban neighborhood. Amy had started attending public school and was becoming accustomed to riding the school bus. Catherine's social media accounts remained inactive. How empty it all seems now, posting just to keep up appearances, she stated in an unusual email. Days spent struggling with credit card payments tested their marriage, but they were no longer avoiding reality. I had started setting new ambitions. I intended to achieve more in pharmaceutical research and eventually run my own research team. I hoped to share my knowledge and experience with young scholars. During the holidays, I attended finance and economics study groups. The individuals I met there lived strong, practical lives. The real chats, devoid of pretension and ego, were refreshing. The Thanksgiving incident taught each family member valuable lessons, including the value of financial independence, the futility of a pretentious lifestyle, and, most importantly, the true definition of family. Grandfather's final words lingered in my heart. Real bonds can only be born after overcoming hardship. In my desk drawer, the pearl hair clip I had prepared as Amy's gift was still nicely wrapped. Perhaps someday, when she discovers actual value, when she appreciates the importance of standing on her own 2 feet rather than counting social media likes, this clip will be appropriate to show her. Outside the window, early spring winds rustled through the street trees, signaling the start of a new season. My brother got my fiancée pregnant before our wedding. My family wants to forgive me, but I cut ties and moved away. This is going to be a long story, and it's exactly as strange as it sounds. I will try to be as concise as possible, but there is a lot to discuss. I don't care if anyone believes this or not. It's so ridiculous that I have to rant. Also, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, but I'll leave out any details that could identify me to anyone unfamiliar with the situation. I'm 32 years old, and up until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years, Sarah. My younger brother Mike is 29 years old and has always been our family's golden child. To properly understand the seriousness of this betrayal and why it affected me so hard, I need to provide some context for our family dynamics and how we reached this point. Growing up, Mike could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, whereas I was continually admonished and punished for little offenses. This was not your average sibling rivalry or subtle partiality. It was outright and intense. If Mike broke something, I'd be accused. If he began a fight, I would be grounded. If we both got straight A's, Mike would get a new video game console, and I'd get a pat on the back and a reminder to keep it up. Our parents, Tom and Linda, were constantly making excuses for their favoritism. Mike's younger? He needs more attention. You're the older one, you should know better. Mike's just more sensitive, we have to be careful with him. The constant barrage of unreasonable standards and gaslighting made me feel useless and disliked in my own home. As we grew older, the favoritism became more obvious. And when I was accepted to a good college on a partial scholarship, my parents barely mentioned it. When Mike opted to attend community college, they gave him a big party and purchased him a car for commuting. Never mind that I had been biking 5 miles each way to my part-time job for several years. I moved out as quickly as possible to get away from the harmful surroundings. I supported myself in college by working 2 jobs and taking out loans. Meanwhile, Mike dropped out of community college after just 1 semester, claiming that it wasn't for him. Our parents commended him for knowing himself, rather than conforming to societal expectations. They even backed his string of unsuccessful business projects over the years, regardless of how badly planned or hopeless they were. No matter how much distance I tried to build, my family was always able to pull me back in. Holiday dinners were a nightmare of subtle insults and less than subtle comparisons. Are you still in that entry-level position? Well, Mike is thinking of starting another business. He's very entrepreneurial. Never mind that I was slowly developing a secure job while Mike squandered our parents' retirement savings. Despite everything, I attempted to keep contact with Mike. He was still my brother after all. However, it was always one-sided. I'd reach out to connect, but he'd either ignore me or find a way to make the conversation competitive. If I was promoted, Mike would suddenly have a large opportunity come up. If I began dating someone, Mike would undoubtedly be in a serious relationship. I met Sarah while trying to reunite with Mike. She was a friend of one of Mike's brief romantic relationships, and we hit it off right away. Sarah was everything I wanted in a partner: intelligent, amusing, caring, and breathtakingly gorgeous. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely satisfied and cherished. My folks, however, were not delighted. They made snide jokes about Sarah being out of my league, and questioned what she saw in me. Mike, on the other hand, took an uncommon interest in my life. He was always asking about Sarah, wanting to know everything about her. At the moment, I was simply relieved that he appeared to be interested in something in my life. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. Sarah and I moved in together after a year of dating, and it was great. We both had successful careers, traveled much, and discussed our future plans. For the first time, I began to believe that I could have the life I had always desired. A successful profession, a loving partner, and possibly children someday. On our 4th anniversary, I proposed to Sarah. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a nice supper at home and a moving speech. I was overjoyed when she said yes. We planned on having a long engagement and taking our time planning the wedding. We weren't in a hurry, we had our entire lives ahead of us, or so I believed. When we informed my family of our engagement, their emotions were diverse, to say the least. My mother put on a fake smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that implied it was anything but. My father grunted and said, "Good luck with that," before returning to his television. Mike had the oddest reaction. He congratulated us, but his smile was unnerving, almost predatory. I disregarded it at the time, attributing it to my own fears. The following year was dominated by wedding preparations and job stress. Sarah and I were both working hard hours to save for our wedding and a down payment on a home. We weren't seeing each other as much as we used to, but I figured it was simply a phase. Every relationship has difficulties, right? Looking back, I should have noticed the symptoms. Sarah became distant, always on her phone, smiling at texts she dismissed as coming from work friends. She began going out more with her friends, returning home late and smelling of booze and cologne. I still trusted her entirely. I never imagined her cheating, let alone with my own brother. Sarah began to behave strangely a few months ago. She was temperamental, angry, and frequently nauseated. I was excited about the chance that she was pregnant. We hadn't been trying, but we had discussed having children someday. I began brainstorming methods to help her, such as nursery colors and baby names. Then, one night, she sat me down, tears running down her cheeks, and delivered the bombshell. She was pregnant, but the baby was not mine. I was stunned. Yes, we hadn't been intimate much lately because of our tight schedules, but I never anticipated her to cheat. When I asked who the father was, she broke down and muttered, "It's Mike." My entire universe came crumbling down at that point. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had based my existence on, was shattered. I couldn't breathe or think because I was overcome with feelings of betrayal and grief. Sarah attempted to explain, her words falling out between sobs. Apparently, it began during our engagement party. Mike had approached her, saying she was making a mistake by marrying me. He used her weaknesses, telling her she deserved better and that he could offer her everything I couldn't. It wasn't a one-time event, they'd been having an affair for months. I kicked Sarah out that night. I couldn't stomach looking at her or being in the same room as the lady who had deceived me so totally. She begged me to forgive her, saying it was a mistake and she loved me. But all I could think about was how many times she had lied to me, slept with my brother, and done so while wearing the ring I had given her. After Sarah departed, I confronted Mike. I can't recall what I said. It was all a swirl of wrath and pain. At first, he tried to dismiss it as a drunken mistake that didn't mean anything. But when I questioned him, he grew defensive, saying, "Well, maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me." I saw red. I got in my car and headed to his apartment, intending to make him regret what he said. I'm not sure what I was planning to accomplish, but when I arrived, our parents were already present. Mike presumably called them first, telling them about Sarah seducing him and apologizing. And you know what? They believed him. They always do. My mother immediately began lecturing me about forgiveness and family, while my father stood there with his arms crossed, obviously disappointed in me but not in his beloved Mike. I tried to explain what had happened, but they refused to listen. They kept encouraging me to forgive Mike and support Sarah during her pregnancy because family comes first. I lost it. Years of pent-up hatred and anger finally came out. I told them how I felt about their strange sense of dedication, how they had always preferred Mike over me and had never taken my side or backed me. I informed Mike that he was no longer my brother, that he had died for me. I told my parents they could have the son they'd always wanted because they no longer had me. I stormed away, ignoring their shouts and pleads. I traveled for hours without a destination in mind, simply wanting to get away from everything and everyone. When I finally arrived home, I saw dozens of missed calls and messages. Sarah begged for another opportunity, and Mike alternated between apologies and accusations. Most of the messages, however, came from my parents, who demanded that I grow up and make amends. I disregarded them all. I rarely ate or slept. I called out of work, using up all of my vacation days. I couldn't face anyone or bear the thought of explaining what had happened. I just sat in my apartment, going over every detail of my relationship with Sarah and every encounter with Mike, trying to find out where I went wrong. It has been 3 months now. To cope with everything, I moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and began treatment. But my family refuses to quit up. Despite my efforts to break off communication, they continue to intrude into my life. They've started coming up at my office, hoping to ambush me and demand a reconciliation. My mother approaches me in the parking lot, sobbing about how I'm tearing the family apart. My father leaves scathing voicemail messages, imploring me to man up and forgive Mike. Mike himself has attempted to approach me multiple times, but I have managed to dodge him thus far. They've even used flying monkeys, extended family members dressed as concerned parties, to guilt trip me into forgiving Mike. Aunts, and cousins I haven't spoken to in years suddenly phone, reminding me how important family is and how I should let bygones be bygones. It's as if they live in a parallel reality where Mike and Sarah made a minor mistake rather than a life-altering betrayal. I received a message from Sarah yesterday. She is keeping the baby and intends to co-parent with Mike. And guess what? My parents are pleased to become grandparents, conveniently ignoring the circumstances and the disparaging remarks they made about Sarah when she was with me. The letter was filled with apologies and explanations, including how she and Mike found real love amidst this horrific scenario. She even had the nerve to say that she hopes we can all become friends someday for the sake of the child. I am at my wit's end. Part of me wants to break all links, relocate to another state, change my identity, and start again somewhere no one knows about this mess. But another part of me is so angry that I want to stay and fight, to show them how twisted the situation is. I do not know what to do. This betrayal has affected every aspect of my life. I cannot take being alone with my thoughts. I haven't even considered dating again because the thought of trusting someone like that scares me. I've also lost friends as a result of this. Those who believe I should take the high road and reconcile with my family, as if I'm the bad person for refusing to play happy families with the people who have caused me the most pain. The thought of Sarah and Mike raising a kid together, a child who should have been mine, is like a constant knife in my gut. I understand, cognitively, that the child is innocent in all of this. It's not the baby's fault that its parents are liars and cheaters. But I can't force myself to feel happy about its presence. My parents have begun to consider how I should participate in the child's life and how I will become an uncle. The thought makes me feel physically uncomfortable. How can I look at this child without seeing the ultimate emblem of my brother's betrayal? So, Reddit, my question is, am I an idiot for not forgiving my brother and ex-fiancé? Is it wrong to want to lose connections with my family over this? Any advice on how to proceed would be highly welcomed, as I feel as if I am drowning in a sea of deception and gaslighting. I apologize for this lengthy post. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Writing it all out has been cathartic in a way. I'm not sure what I'm hoping to achieve by sharing this. Validation, wisdom, or simply the opportunity to scream into the void and have someone, anybody hear me. Edit. Oh my God, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for your assistance and advice. I'm astounded by the response, and it will take me some time to get through all of the comments. However, I wanted to answer a few typical queries. Yes, I have contacted a lawyer about obtaining a restraining order against my family. It is currently in progress. I do not intend to have any contact with the baby. It is not the child's fault, but I cannot become involved without losing my mind. For those who are curious about my work, I have already spoken with HR about the matter. They are aware and supportive. They've increased security at the front desk and given me the option of working from home more regularly. I am grateful for their understanding. Many of you have inquired whether I had contemplated moving to another city or state. It is definitely something I am thinking about. My company has offices in several other cities, so a transfer could be possible. I'm considering the advantages and cons. To those suggesting a DNA test, Sarah has admitted to the affair, and the timeline is congruent. I see no reason to believe the child is not Mike's. Even if it were my child, I doubt I could ever look at him without thinking about this treachery. The sheer number of people who have had comparable experiences has overwhelmed me. It's sad to understand how common this type of betrayal is, but it's also weirdly reassuring to know I am not alone. Thank you for sharing your stories. To the individual who inquired whether I had explored legal action against Mike for alienation of affection, I looked into it, but it is not recognized in my state. Even if it were, I doubt I have the energy for a judicial struggle right now. Several people have noted that Mike's behavior appears narcissistic. I've started reading about narcissistic personality disorder, and a lot of it rings true. It helps me comprehend, but it does not justify his conduct. Those inquiring about Sarah's relatives are as startled and outraged as one would imagine. They have stopped communicating with her and have reached out to offer me their support. It's a minor comfort, but I value it. To the person who inquired if I'd ever considered having my own children. To be honest, this entire experience has made me rethink if I even want a family. I'm trying not to make any big decisions while I analyze everything. I'll keep you posted if something big happens, but for now, my priority is to recuperate and move forward. Thanks again, Reddit. You have helped more people than you realize. Your support and recommendations have given me a lot to think about, and they've really been a lifeline during this difficult time. I may not be able to answer every remark, but please know that I read them all and they have helped me feel less alone. Update. Hello Reddit. It's been nearly 2 weeks since my previous post, and it has been a roller coaster. First and foremost, thank you for your invaluable assistance and guidance. I didn't anticipate my post to go viral. Reading through all of your answers has been upsetting and somehow reassuring. It's disturbing how regular this type of deception is. The past few weeks have been really hard. Remember how I mentioned that I was working on getting a restraining order? That became a tremendous ordeal. My lawyer had filed the papers, and we had a hearing planned. I assumed it would be simple given the proof and the constant harassment, but I was mistaken. My parents arrived to court with their own lawyer, a high-powered attorney dressed in an expensive suit who most likely costs more per hour than I do in a week. They attempted to portray me as the insane one, claiming I was ripping the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, as if Mike had stumbled and fell into my fiancé. Fortunately, the judge did not buy it. She issued the restraining order against Mike and my parents, but only after my mother sobbed in court and my father stared at me as if I had committed murder. Mike's reaction, however, I swear, if looks could kill, I wouldn't have left the courthouse alive. As we were leaving, Mike attempted to approach me, but my lawyer intervened, reminding him of the newly issued restraining order. Mike simply scoffed and stated, "This isn't over. You can't hide behind a piece of paper forever." I'd be lying if I said his remarks didn't make me uncomfortable, but at least I have some legal protection now. My job situation has also been a nightmare. Remember when I mentioned my family visiting my workplace? It all culminated last week. I was at a client meeting when my assistant alerted me to the fact that my mother was raising a disturbance in the foyer. Apparently, she had brought a photo album and was showing my coworkers baby images of Mike and me while crying about how close her boys used to be. When I arrived downstairs, I found her surrounded by several uneasy-looking colleagues. She was in the middle of telling a story about Mike and me bathing together when we were toddlers. When she recognized me, she attempted to approach me, babbling about organizing a baby shower. I cut her off, telling her she had to go immediately or I'd call the cops for trespassing and breaching the restraining order. Her expression looked as if I had smacked her, but after everything they had put me through, I couldn't care. Security let her out, and I spent the next hour coordinating with my boss and coworkers to minimize the damage. Most of them understood, but I could tell some were concerned about the drama I was bringing into the office. But it was the interaction with Mike that truly threw me off course. Last Saturday, I was in the gym, trying to let out my rage on the punching bag. I was so absorbed that I didn't realize someone was approaching until I heard his voice. I looked back, and there was Mike, smirking at me as if he hadn't just broken the restraining order. He began shouting loudly, making sure everyone nearby could hear. I ordered him to go before I contacted the cops, but he laughed and said he was going to tell them I had threatened him and Sarah. That's when I lost it. I struck at him, landing a punch squarely on his jaw. He stumbled back, then pounced at me. We ended up on the floor, trading blows like children again, but this time, there were no parents to separate us, no one instructing me to be the bigger person, and let Mike win. I managed to land a couple decent hits before the gym staff intervened. Mike's nose was bleeding, and I could feel my face swell. We were both shrieking, attempting to break free and go at each other again. The gym manager threatened to call the cops, which ultimately shook me out of it. I grabbed my belongings and fled. I was driving home, still shivering from the adrenaline rush, when I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I responded. Sarah was shouting at me about breaking Mike's nose and suggesting he would require surgery. I couldn't stop giggling. Sarah being unhappy with me after what they had done was plain ludicrous. I sarcastically apologized if I irritated her little boyfriend, whom she had been sleeping with behind my back for months. She started crying, moaning about how frightened she was, how the baby could feel her suffering, and how I was so selfish. I hung up and blocked her phone. The consequences of the brawl were serious. The news traveled quickly within our social circle. My phone was inundated with texts from friends and relatives, some of whom were supportive, while others chastised me for assaulting my poor, defenseless brother. Sarah's parents contacted me again, expressing their support for me as well as displeasure in their daughter. It was a minor consolation, but at this point, I'll take what I can. The restraining order does not seem enough anymore. Mike has already demonstrated his willingness to violate it, and I am truly afraid about what he may do next. The legal consequences have been a nightmare. My lawyer contacted me the day after the gym incident to inform me that Mike had filed assault charges against me. I described how Mike broke the restraining order and provoked me. My lawyer groaned and said we'd fight it, but it might be a tough struggle because I threw the first punch. We are in the process of filing charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order. My lawyer believes that this will strengthen our case, but nothing is assured. I've had to give police statements, show them my facial and knuckle injuries, and explain why I was defending myself against my own brother. The entire process is humiliating. To make matters worse, Mike and I have been permanently barred from the gym. While I don't blame them, it's terrible because the gym was one of the only locations where I could express my anger in a healthy manner. My cousin Amy, with whom I've always been close, called me lately. She's been under a lot of pressure from her family to support me, but she's standing firm. She explained what had been going on behind the scenes. Apparently, my parents have been telling everyone that I'm having a mental breakdown. They claim that Sarah and Mike's relationship began after Sarah and I split up, and that I'm simply envious and unwilling to move on. According to Amy, the majority of the family is suspicious, but some are buying into the story. It's infuriating to know they're spreading lies about me while I'm still trying to recuperate. Work has been difficult, to say the least. After the event with my mother generating a disturbance in the lobby and the argument with Mike becoming viral on local social media, I can see my coworkers are nervous around me. Earlier this week, my manager summoned me to his office. He began by saying he regarded me as an employee and recognized that I was going through a difficult time. Then he dropped the bombshell. He proposed that I take a leave of absence until things settled down. He referred to it as a personal sabbatical, paid, of course, but it was evident that the decision had been taken. I wanted to fight, tell him that work was the only thing keeping me sane right now, but I knew it would be fruitless. I agreed, thanked him for his understanding, and began to pack up my office. As I was leaving, I overheard two coworkers whispering about how my brother got my fiancée pregnant. I slammed my office door louder than required as I walked out, taking some tiny joy in seeing them jump. I would be lying if I said none of this bothered me. I've begun taking long trips at night just to get out of my flat. Sometimes I find myself parked outside my old house, the one I shared with Sarah, wondering how my life became so messed up. In the midst of all this commotion, I found comfort from an unexpected source. Sarah's younger sister Emma. She messaged me on social media, apologizing for her sister's actions and offering her support. At first, I was skeptical. What if it was all a trick? But after speaking with her, I understood she was equally outraged by Sarah's acts as I was. Emma has kept me informed about Sarah and Mike's lives. They appear to have moved in together, living as if they did not wreck several lives in order to be together. Emma claims Sarah is attempting to portray herself as the victim, crying to anybody who will listen about how she never meant to hurt anyone, and that she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. It makes me sick to my stomach, but I appreciate Emma keeping me updated. After all, information is power, even if it is knowledge that I would rather not have. The social media impact has been a nightmare. I've always been a quiet person, but this event has thrust me into an unwelcome limelight. Someone, most likely one of Mike's friends, posted about our feud on a local Facebook page. The post did not identify our names, but it recounted the situation in enough detail that anyone who knows us might figure it out. The comment section became a battleground. Some individuals defended me, claiming Mike received what he deserved. Others classified me as unstable and said I ought to be locked away. I made a terrible mistake by reading some of the comments one night after too many beers. I threw my phone across the room so forcefully that the screen cracked. Since then, I've deleted the majority of my social media profiles. I can't handle the continuous notifications and messages from people I haven't spoken to in years, all of whom suddenly want to know the juicy details of my personal life. With everything that has happened, I have realized that I cannot stay in this city any longer. There are too many memories and opportunities to run into Sarah, Mike, or my parents. I've started looking into internal transfers at my company, and there's a promising opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not ideal, I've never liked the continual rain, but at this point, I'd go to the moon to get away from all of this upheaval. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the prospect of a new beginning is growing more appealing. A new city, a new apartment, And a new life where no one recognizes me as the person whose brother cheated on his fiancée. My parents have remained abnormally silent since the restraining order was imposed. I'm simply waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to find a new method to force their way back into my life. Meanwhile, Sarah has been spreading the word about her pregnancy far and wide. Emma tells me she's been posting continuous updates on social media, including ultrasound photographs, belly shots, and messages about how blessed she and Mike are and how thrilled they are to start their family. Each new update feels like a fresh wound, triggering the pain just as I thought I was beginning to recover. So that is where things stand. 2 weeks ago, I believed my life couldn't get any worse, yet it has. I am still angry and wounded, but also exhausted. I am tired of justifying myself. Reddit, I suppose this is less of an update and more of a cry into the void. I'm not sure what I'm asking for anymore: advice, pity, or perhaps a time machine to prevent me from ever introducing Sarah to my brother. Whatever happens next, I will attempt to keep you all updated. Your encouragement meant more to me than you understand. It's comforting to be reminded that there are still good individuals in the world, even when everything appears to be full of betrayal and deception. Hello, Reddit. It's been a week since my last update, and I'm here with what I hope to be my final post about this calamity. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for their assistance and advice along this journey. Your messages have been a lifeline at the darkest days in my life. A lot has happened in just 7 days, and I'm still trying to digest everything. I guess I'll start with the major news. I'm moving. Yes, I took the risk and accepted a transfer to our Seattle location. It wasn't an easy decision, but with everything that had transpired, I realized I needed a new beginning. The choice came following a particularly difficult day last week. I had just returned from another meeting with my lawyer over Mike's assault allegations when I noticed a message in my mailbox. It came from Sarah. I nearly threw it out, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside, there was an ultrasound photo and a handwritten letter expressing her and Mike's joy over their baby. She said she hoped I could find it in my heart to be pleased for them and that their child would be overjoyed to have me as an uncle. I saw red. Before I knew it, I had cleared Sarah's phone number and contacted her. She picked up on the second ring, so I let loose. I told her precisely how I felt about her, Mike, and their beautiful little family. I told her she was insane if she thought I'd ever want anything to do with that child, and that she, Mike, and the baby could all go to hell. It wasn't my best moment, but it felt liberating to finally express all I'd been keeping back. That night, I realized I couldn't live in this city any longer. I called my supervisor and informed him that I wanted to relocate to Seattle. To my surprise, he appeared relieved, probably concerned about how all of this drama would reflect on the organization. He promised to expedite the papers, and by the next morning, it was official. I had 2 weeks to collect my belongings and relocate across the nation. My family and social circle were quick to learn about my move. Unsurprisingly, my folks were furious. They turned up uninvited to my flat, defying the restraining order once more, to try to persuade me not to go. My mother cried, accusing me of abandoning the family, while my father raged at me for being selfish and immature. I didn't participate. I contacted the police and had them removed for breaking the injunction. My mother shouted as they were let out, telling me that I would regret it, that family is everything, and that I was wasting it. I slammed the door and returned to packing. Mike did not contact me directly, likely due to ongoing legal issues, but he did write a lengthy statement on social media. He talked about how some people can't handle seeing others happy, and how he and Sarah were rising above the hate to focus on their new family unit. It was plainly directed at me. I'll admit it hurt to see how many people liked and commented on his behalf, but I told myself that their opinions are meaningless because they don't know the truth. Sarah's remark was the most unexpected. Following our phone talk, she confided in her sister Emma, who has been keeping me updated on their condition. Emma informed me Sarah had a breakdown, stating she knew what she and Mike had done was wrong and was frightened of the future. My cousin Amy, bless her, offered to help me pack. While we worked, she told me more about what was going on in her family. Apparently, my aunt, my mother's sister, had a furious dispute with my mother. She accused her of consistently preferring Mike and pushing me away. She even informed my parents that they were reaping the repercussions of their years of favoritism. I won't lie, it felt good to hear that someone in the family was finally calling them out. My lawyer promised me that my move would have no effect on the pending legal dispute. We're still pursuing charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order, and we're fighting the assault allegations he made against me. My lawyer feels certain that the judge will see through Mike's lies, especially given his history of violating the injunction. Moving across the nation may potentially help our case, as it demonstrates that I am not a threat to Mike and have no intention of dealing with him. I'm not sure if I will post another update after this. Part of starting over is leaving the past behind, and as helpful as this group has been, I believe it is time for me to move on from this sad chapter. I need to focus on creating a new life rather than obsessing on the past. So, I guess this is it. Wish me luck, Reddit. I have a whole new life ahead of me in Seattle, and I plan to make the most of it. Thank you for staying with me throughout this. Your help has been tremendous, and it's reassuring to know that there are still good people out there, even in a world filled with betrayal and deception. My sister fell into addiction and abandoned her child. I chose to adopt my nephew despite family judgment. I, a 28 female, work as a product manager for a software firm, primarily remotely. I've created a life that I'm actually satisfied with. I've never desired children, and it's become a source of contention with my family. If you were at our annual family reunion last weekend, you'd think I was a bad guy for not having children or devoting my life to chasing them. Family reunions are meant to be enjoyable, right? A time to gather up with family, eat too much food, and perhaps giggle at embarrassing childhood memories. Well, mine was more of an endurance test. The tension was palpable from the moment I walked into the house, the covert glances exchanged between aunts, the overly broad smiles, and the loaded questions. Everything was there. I had hardly hung up my coat when the first jab was delivered. "You're still single, huh?" My cousin Patricia, 35F, spoke loudly enough for the entire room to hear. Patricia, who has 3 children and always writes about them on social media, was holding court in the kitchen, displaying her youngest's most recent school photos. "Must be good to have so much free time. What are you even doing with yourself?" I smiled nicely and shrugged it off, because what is the point of participating? But it did not end there. Another relative joined in, discussing how their lives truly began after having children. Then someone else inquired, "Have you ever considered adoption?" I mean, it's not too late, but it's more difficult as you get older. It was as if they had planned this routine, an organized ambush aimed to make me feel insignificant. They said it all with faux sweetness, as if they were attempting to assist, but the verdict was as apparent as the lemonade on the table. Even my mother joined in, quietly saying that I was wasting my prime years and that every woman should experience the joy of parenthood. My father nodded in agreement, adding that they would have liked to have more grandchildren. I tried to divert by highlighting my work accomplishments and hobbies, but it didn't help. My accomplishments were never taken seriously here. They only valued diapers, report cards, and family Christmas photos. At some time, the conversation turned to my younger sister Lauren. Growing up, she was the golden child, beautiful, charming, and always the center of attention. Lauren was in the spotlight whenever there was one. But everything changed when she got pregnant at 21, dropped out of college, and became associated with the wrong crowd. Addiction followed, as did a series of poor decisions. She eventually withdrew from our lives completely. I last saw her years ago, during a court-mandated family therapy session that concluded with her storming out. Nobody had heard from her since. When Lauren's name came up, the room became quieter. It was as if everyone agreed not to linger on it for too long. My aunt casually added that Lauren's son, Jake, was now in foster care. She spoke it as if she were discussing the weather, detached, easygoing, and without passion. I froze for a while, trying to digest what I'd just heard. Jake, I had never met him, but I knew he was around 10 years old. He was living with Lauren and one of her boyfriends when I last heard from him. Apparently, that did not last. "What do you mean, he's in foster care?" I asked. My aunt shrugged. "You know how Lauren is. Her decisions caught up with her. Poor kid, what can you do?" I looked around the room, hoping for someone to say something, anything, but they all continued their talks. It was as if Jake did not exist. I pressed my parents about it, but they dismissed me. "You wouldn't understand," my mother replied. "It's not that simple." The remainder of the evening was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about Jake, a 10-year-old youngster abandoned by his mother and rejected by those who should have cared for him. And here they were, lecturing me on duty and family values. When I came home that night, I couldn't put it down. I started exploring, attempting to learn everything I could about Jake. It didn't take long to get some information. He'd been in the system for a while, moving between families. The more I read, the angrier I became. How? How could my family simply pretend he did not exist? How could they sit around judging me and ignore a youngster in need? The next morning, I called a social worker and inquired about Jake's status. It was not a decision I took lightly. I knew it would be complex and messy, but I couldn't bear the thought of him being forgotten. If my family does not stand up, perhaps I can. This was not about demonstrating something to anyone. It wasn't about deflecting their criticism or making myself feel better. It was about Jake, a child who deserved better than the hand he was dealt. I wasn't about to let him fall between the gaps. I spent the next day making calls and figuring out how to meet Jake. The social worker I spoke with informed me that Jake had been in foster care for several years. He'd been transferred between families and, reportedly, had behavioral issues. When I inquired what that meant, she referenced difficulty adjusting, acting out, and suffering at school. It did not surprise me. How could a child go through what he did without having some scars? The social worker was wary about allowing me to visit him. She said that Jake had trust issues, and that meeting new people could be intimidating for him. But, upon learning that I was a family member, albeit a minor blip in Jake's life, she consented to arrange a supervised visit. She advised me to control my expectations. A week later, I arrived at the foster care center for the meeting. My palms were moist, and I was constantly adjusting my backpack strap. I didn't know what I was getting into. The social worker brought me into a small room with mismatched furnishings and colorful peeling paint. Jake sat at a table and drew on a sheet of paper. His hair was scruffy, and he appeared considerably smaller than I had imagined for a 10-year-old. He didn't look up as I stepped in. I sat across from him, unsure what to say. The social worker introduced me as his aunt. Jake returned his attention to his sketch after a fleeting peek at me. His shoulders were slumped, and he held the pencil hard. I did not want to push him, so I simply commented on his drawing. He was drawing a robot, detailed and exact. When I complimented it, he murmured, "Thanks," but continued working. The initial meeting was quiet and unpleasant, but I felt an attraction to him that I couldn't explain. He didn't trust me. Why would he? But I knew I wanted to return. When I told my family about the visit, it went about as well as one would imagine. My mother rolled her eyes and told me I was overly theatrical. My father scoffed and said I was playing hero. My cousins laughed and joked about how much I would regret it. It stung, but that didn't matter. I was not doing this for them. I returned to see Jake several times during the next 2 weeks. He was always guarded, but he began to open up. I took him a sketchbook on one of our visits, and his face lit up for the first time. He adored drawing robots, spaceships, and superheroes. He was also skilled at it. When I asked him about his favorite movies, he ran off a litany of animated films. I made a mental note to watch them later so I would have something to discuss with him. He gradually began to share small aspects of his life. He told me about his mother, how she used to sing to him when he was younger, how she smelled like strawberries, and how she stopped coming up when he needed her the most. It was painful to hear, yet I did not intervene. I let him speak. I had no illusions about how difficult the adoption process would be when I decided to begin. The paperwork alone was daunting, and the system was designed to filter out anyone who wasn't completely dedicated. Some of my friends were supportive, while others raised eyebrows. They reminded me that Jake arrived with baggage, and asked if I was prepared for the responsibilities. It did not change my mind, but it made me reflect on how unprepared I felt. My folks were furious when they found out. They accused me of insulting the family and heaping further humiliation on them. My mother even accused me of stealing Lauren's child, which was ludicrous given how they had wiped their hands of him. After one too many arguments, I stopped returning their calls. Fortunately, not everyone was against me. I had a handful of close friends help me set up Jake's room. We painted the walls a gentle blue, installed shelving for his sketchbooks, and added a little desk where he could draw. I wanted him to feel like he had his own space, even if he wasn't living with me yet. During one visit, Jake told me that he had been bullied in foster care. The other kids taunted him for not having a real family. I could see how much that affected him, even though he tried not to show it. I promised myself I'd modify it. He deserved to feel protected and wanted. The process stalled when the agency requested family references. My parents refused to vouch for me, claiming I was unfit to raise a child. It felt like a hit in the belly, but I didn't let that stop me. I discovered coworkers and friends who were more than happy to support me. Update. The custody court is planned for next month, so I've been preparing in my spare time. The social worker cautioned me that these hearings may be intense. They examine every element of your life to see whether you are suitable to be a parent. My remote work position turned out to be a benefit. They appreciated that I had a flexible schedule to fulfill Jake's requirements. Jake stayed with me for the first time overnight yesterday. I was nervous, maybe more than he was. I had packed the fridge with snacks that I thought kids would enjoy and purchased extra blankets in case he became cold. He arrived carrying his sketchbook, which seemed to be his security blanket. We attempted making pancakes for dinner because he remarked he'd never done it before. It was a total disaster. The batter got everywhere, on the ceiling, don't ask, on our shirts, and somehow in my hair. But then something incredible occurred. Jake laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a true gut laugh. It was the first time I'd heard him actually laugh, and it made the entire disaster worthwhile. Later that night, while I was tucking him in, an entirely new experience for me, he asked if he might hang glow-in-the-dark stars from the ceiling. In case I stay again, he explained quietly. My heart almost burst. After he went to sleep, I sat in the living room and cried. Happy tears? Overwhelmed tears? Fearful tears, all at once. The most unusual element has been adjusting to video conversations with my team while having indications of kid life in the background. During today's morning stand-up, my supervisor discovered a half-finished robot drawing pinned to my wall. When I told her about Jake, her entire face brightened up. It turns out her child is also interested in robots. She offered to link Jake to some online art programs. My cousin Patricia has been circulating tales in the family group chat about how I'm not mother material, and that this is simply one of my phases. I exited the discussion. Anna, another relative I've never been very close to, shocked me with a private message. She expressed her admiration for what I was doing and offered to help. She has taught art to children of Jake's age before. The social worker came by today to check on Jake's room setting. She saw that the art materials were organized by type and color, Jake's system, not mine, and commented on how he's already personalizing the area. She also added that his current foster home said he's been more involved and communicative since our visits began. Last night, Jake showed me a drawing he had been working on. It was unlike his typical robots and spacecraft. This one featured two folks sitting at a table eating pancakes. That's us, he remarked, before abruptly changing the subject. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom so he wouldn't see me cry again. The most difficult thing has been dealing with my parents' silence. They have not spoken to me since I legally began the adoption process. Dad did pass by my house once. I noticed his automobile slowing down, but he did not stop. Mom blocked me on Facebook after I shared a photo of Jake's painting desk. Their rejection hurts, but seeing Jake slowly emerge from his shell reminds me why I'm doing this. Tomorrow, we have another meeting with the adoption counselor. Jake requested if he might bring his sketchbook and show her his progress. The counselor believes art therapy could be useful for him, and I agree. For the time being, I'm taking things slowly, attempting to build trust and stability. Some days are more difficult than others, yet they all feel right in some way. Update number 2. The home inspection was more thorough than I anticipated. Last week, the social worker called to plan it, and everything in my flat seemed inadequate. I spent days childproofing corners, changing furniture, and triple-checking every possible safety concern. I also reconfigured all of my business cords to avoid tripping. During the inspection, she spotted Jake's artwork conspicuously displayed in what was once my home office and is now his art room. She paused briefly in front of his most recent work, a realistic picture of a futuristic city. She smiled and remarked, "He's going to feel at home here." Those words had a different impact than any family acceptance could. The financial hardship has been real, however. My savings have been depleted due to legal bills, home improvements, and preparing Jake's place. I canceled my gym membership and began meal preparation instead of buying takeout. Every spare dime goes towards making this happen. My startup's HR department astonished me by giving adoption aid benefits. I had no idea we had them. Then came the shocking news. My parents had filed a legal objection to the adoption. They wrote a letter to the court, stating I'm mentally unstable and using Jake to prove a point. The claims were ludicrous. They dubbed me a workaholic who can't even take care of a plant. I had to engage a lawyer to refute their accusations. Anna really stepped up. She submitted a compelling letter to the court praising my character and dedication to Jacob. She also recounted how the family had previously failed him, which allegedly caused a disturbance at the last family gathering. I was not invited. Jake has been asking questions regarding the process. Yesterday, he asked whether he could keep his last name or if he had to take mine. The idea that he's thinking about these details causes my heart to accelerate. I told him it was his decision. He nodded and returned to drawing, but I could tell he was processing it. The court date is scheduled for next month. My lawyer believes we have a good case, especially because none of my family members who opposed the adoption attempted to help Jake themselves. Still, the wait is nerve-wracking. Jake picks up on my nervousness, so I've been trying to keep optimistic around him. On a more positive note, his art instructor contacted me about entering one of his pieces in a school exhibition. Jake was hesitant at first, but after I showed him some famous robot art online, He became enthusiastic about the concept. It would be his first time displaying his work in public. I have to remember that, despite all of the legal battles and family drama, this is about providing Jake with stability and love. Sometimes, when I watch him engrossed in his art, finally feeling safe enough to create freely, I know deep down that this is right. Update 3. Life with Jake has settled into a new normal, albeit not without its problems. The most difficult part has been establishing routines, which his prior foster families struggled with. We worked together to design a weekly timetable that includes plenty of time for art. Getting him up for school remains a daily battle. Who knew 10-year-olds could be so clever in their excuses? But we are making progress. The school situation has been difficult. Jake's teacher called me in for a meeting last week. His math and science grades could be improved, but that wasn't her main concern. She noted that he becomes exceedingly anxious during parent-teacher conferences or when other students discuss their families. During the latest family tree project, he shut down and refused to cooperate. I've been working with Jake's school counselor to assist him handle these situations. We're working on alternate projects that honor diverse types of families. His art instructor has been especially helpful, allowing him to stay in the art room during lunchtime when he requires a peaceful environment. She describes his technical abilities as excellent for his age, particularly his perspective sketching. The custody hearing last week was very stressful. I was unprepared for how personal the inquiries would become. They inquired about everything from my work schedule to my personal life, hoping to evaluate whether I could create a stable environment. When they questioned my decision to adopt as a single parent, I held firm. I mentioned how my remote work flexibility allows me to spend more time with Jake than in many traditional family situations. In terms of work, my staff has been remarkably understanding. During a recent video call, Jake broke down in the background because he couldn't find his favorite sketching pencil. Instead of becoming annoyed, my coworkers shared their own parenting disaster experiences. Following that, one person sent Jake a professional art supply kit. Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor, provided the biggest surprise. She's been teaching art at the local community center for 30 years and offered Jake private lessons. He was first cautious about working with someone new, but when he saw her studio, which was filled with sculptures and paintings, his eyes lit up. It has now become a weekly routine. Last night, we had our first significant breakthrough. Jake was working on a new drawing, darker than his typical work. When I inquired, he finally opened up about his time in the system. He talked about feeling like he was always moving, and how he stopped unpacking his bags at new places because he knew he wouldn't remain long. He handed me a little sketchbook he had hidden, packed with drawings of the many rooms he had slept in. Some postings occurred just a few days apart. The conversation was difficult, but important. We ended up sitting on the floor of his art room till late, looking at his drawings and telling me stories about each location. Some made him giggle, while others made him quiet. When he came to the drawing of his present room, I saw it was more detailed than the others. I like drawing this one, he told me, because I'm not scared to remember it. We are still working on his trust difficulties. He occasionally hoards food in his room, a behavior he developed during more unstable times. Instead of confronting him about it, I purchased a little refrigerator and assisted him in organizing his snack hoard. Small steps, but they matter. The familial drama continues to emerge. My aunt sent me a passive-aggressive email about real parenting and how I'm playing house. I didn't react, but Jake overheard me discussing it. This morning, I discovered a drawing on my desk depicting a superhero version of myself blocking lightning bolts with an art shield. It made me laugh and cry simultaneously. Update 4. Lauren showed up to my door uninvited yesterday. I hadn't seen her in 3 years and scarcely recognized her. She requested to see Jake, stating that she had gotten clean and was ready to be a mother again. When I explained that unexpected visits were not permitted under our current arrangement, she became hostile, accusing me of taking her son. The confrontation turned ugly. Lauren began screaming about her maternal rights, which drew the attention of neighbors. Mrs. Thompson, bless her, just happened to be walking by. She hurriedly whisked Jake, who was happily in his art room with headphones on, into her house before he could see anything. Lauren refused to go, so I had to contact the cops. After they escorted her away, I discovered she had also been bothering my parents, demanding they fix this. It appears she has been sleeping at a halfway home downtown. My mother called for the first time in months, not to encourage me, but to recommend that I consider Lauren's feelings. I hung up. Jake's therapist planned an emergency session following the incident. We've been working through his feelings around Lauren's reappearance. He's puzzled, angry, and mostly afraid. He asked me if he needed to go back to her. When I assured him that he didn't, he showed me a drawing he'd been working on, a fortress with numerous locks and security systems. The symbolism was not subtle. My counsel has been wonderful throughout this. She assisted me in filing a restraining order against Lauren and is currently attempting to limit any future contact to monitored visits only. The court seemed sympathetic, particularly after Lauren's outburst at my house. The family has separated into two factions. Most people still agree with Lauren, alleging that I am depriving a mother of her kid. But a few people, including Anna and, surprise, one of my older uncles, have begun to come up about Lauren's history of desertion. The family group chat has devolved into a battle zone. Jake's art teacher suggested submitting his Fortress artwork to a child art competition centered on emotional expression. She sees it as an outlet for him to express his emotions via art. Jake agreed, but asked that the drawing be modified first. He put a figure to the top of the fortress, someone maintaining watch. When I asked about it, he simply replied, "That's you." Work has been my refuge through it all. My staff has been extremely accommodating, allowing me to adapt my schedule as needed for legal meetings and treatment visits. My manager even connected me to another colleague who had gone through a similar adoption process. Their guidance has proven useful. Jake and Lauren had their first supervised video call today. It was brief and awkward. He showed her some of his most recent artwork, but her attempts to reminisce about their time together just made him withdraw. Later, he spent hours in his art room creating robot armies. The therapist claims that this is his way of protecting himself. I've begun chronicling everything, every interaction with Lauren, every family message, and every event. My lawyer believes it's critical for retaining custody. It can feel weird at times to keep track of my own family's attempts to undermine Jake's stability. The most difficult thing is watching Jake battle with conflicting loyalties. He shouldn't have to deal with this much intricacy at his age. But yesterday, when he asked whether he could start calling me Mom, I learned that family can be established in the midst of chaos. Update 5. Jake's art teacher entered one of his works into a regional competition without notifying him. He won first place. When she mentioned it in class, the other students applauded. The tournament organizers intended to highlight his work in a special assembly and give him an award. Jake was scared to speak in front of everyone, but he was determined to do it. The morning of the assembly, he donned the button-up shirt we had chosen jointly, fidgeting with its sleeves. When they announced his name, he approached the podium, clutching his latest sketchbook. His voice shook at first, but it strengthened as he spoke. Art allows me to say things that I cannot say aloud. It makes me feel less alone. The scene was ideal, until Lauren emerged in the back of the auditorium. I saw her first. She appeared unstable and disturbed. Before I could intercede, she began making her way to the platform, calling Jake's name. The school security responded immediately, but not before she yelled allegations about me wrecking their family. Jake froze on stage, his words forgotten. I approached him just as his art instructor was taking him away from the pandemonium. Later, in the stillness of his art room, he worked discreetly on a new piece. A dark, swirling composition that revealed much about his emotional state. That incident was the final straw. Lauren's behavior at school served as evidence in the subsequent emergency court session to get a permanent restraining order. The judge also granted my request to limit her interaction to written communication, which would be reviewed by Jake's therapist. My parents' reactions were predictable. They bombarded social media with posts about how I'd manipulated the system and stolen Jake from his real family, but their campaign failed spectacularly when Anna intervened. She shared a thorough narrative of how the family had ignored Jake's demands for years, including screenshots of earlier messages dismissing his predicament. The truth quickly spread throughout our neighborhood. Other parents at Jake's school began sharing anecdotes about how he had helped their children feel more confidence in their own artwork. His art teacher documented his improvement and the great impact he made on other children. Even my company's CEO, who had met Jake during our virtual Bring Your Kid to Work day, sent a public statement of support. We conducted an art display in our backyard yesterday, which was Jake's idea. He invited his pals from school, neighbors, and even some of his former foster brothers. The theme was building new worlds, which is his specialty. As guests passed through the improvised gallery, I noticed Jake confidently explaining his artwork, which would have been inconceivable a year ago. Mrs. Thompson assisted him in organizing the pieces chronologically, beginning with his early robot sketches and progressing to his most recent works. The development was striking. From hard, mechanical forms to more fluid, emotional compositions. His most recent drawing, which was prominently displayed, depicted a group of people making something together. "It's about choosing your family," he told the tourists. My parents drove past during the show but did not stop. It does not hurt anymore. We've created something stronger than their judgment, a family defined by choice rather than obligation. Jake's most recent school report demonstrates development in all subjects, and his art portfolio has been accepted into a prominent summer program. The fortress drawing that created so much turmoil is now displayed in our living room. Jake recently added windows, gardens, and open gates. It's still strong, he explained. But it's also a home. Tonight, as I went through congratulatory notes from the art show, Jake glanced up and stated, "I never have to pack up my art supplies anymore." It wasn't only about the goods. We both knew it. It was about finding a sense of belonging and establishing roots. Our family may not look like what my parents had envisioned, but it is real in our own. Every drawing on our walls represents a piece of our story. I was always ignored and undervalued by my parents. After my divorce, they exploited me financially and treated my son as a burden. I, 42F, work as an emergency room physician at a large Boston hospital. I am a single mother with a 7-year-old boy named Lucas. Today, I need to express something that has been bothering me for decades concerning my family dynamics, specifically my parents' behavior and its impact on my life. When I was 5 years old, my sister Abigail was born. Our parents told me that I was going to be a big sister and that it would be fantastic to have a lifelong buddy. They didn't mention that I had become invisible in our household. Every morning, Mom would prepare Abigail's breakfast to order. 2 eggs sunny side up, toast cut diagonally, just how my princess likes it, while tossing me a box of cereal without looking at me. The contrasts were evident throughout our daily lives. In elementary school, Mom would spend hours assisting Abigail with her schoolwork, gently explaining each problem. When I sought assistance, the reaction was always the same. "You're smart enough to figure it out for yourself." They'd come to all of Abigail's soccer games, cheering from the sidelines, but they always had previous engagements when I had science competitions. When I required braces, Dad moaned about the price for months. Every dentist appointment was accompanied by sighs and murmured remarks about expenses. 2 years later, when Abigail required braces as well, money became irrelevant. They even got her the beautiful clear ones I had requested but was rejected. "They're an investment in her confidence," Mom told her book club pals, as if my confidence wasn't important. My academic achievements were regarded with indifference. Straight A's in advanced science classes elicited distracted nods, yet Abigail's B+ in normal math prompted a joyful supper at her favorite downtown restaurant. During parent-teacher conferences, they hardly listened when my teachers commended my outstanding achievement in biology and chemistry, but smiled with pride when Abigail's teachers emphasized her engagement in class discussions. Birthday celebrations became a sharp reminder of our differing standing within the family. My parties were basic affairs, supermarket cake and a few pals in the backyard, if I was lucky enough to have one at all. Abigail's celebrations were full-fledged events, complete with bouncy houses, hired entertainers, custom-made cakes, and intricate themed decorations. One year, they even engaged a professional event planner. I once overheard Mom telling a friend, "Well, Abigail just appreciates these things more. Our older one is too practical." The remarks hurt, but I learned to ignore them. The toughest part was watching Abigail transform from a wonderful child to someone I scarcely recognized. In our childhood, we used to make blanket forts and make up funny stories about fantastic adventures. However, years of being treated as if she could do no wrong took its toll. By middle school, she had become exactly what you would anticipate. "Where's my blue sweater?" she'd ask, ransacking my closet without permission. "That's mine, Abigail. Mom bought it for my birthday." "Well, I need it for Jessica's party," she would explain. "Don't be selfish, let your sister borrow it," Mom would often say. My items became communal property, but I was not allowed to touch anything Abigail owned. I learned to pick my battles, expect nothing, and seek validation elsewhere. School became my refuge. While Abigail was being praised for her role in the school play, she had 2 lines. I was quietly winning science fairs and devising my escape plan. I participated in every academic club conceivable, volunteered at the local hospital, and spent my summers conducting research internships. My guidance counselor became my best champion, assisting me in applying for scholarships and providing wonderful recommendations. I shivered with excitement when my acceptance letter to Harvard Medical School arrived, along with a full scholarship. Finally, I figured, they'd have to recognize my accomplishments. I waited till dinner to ensure everyone was present. Instead of celebrating, Abigail dominated the evening with a dramatic reenactment of her 7th grade student council election campaign. "I got a full scholarship to Harvard Medical School," I said during a rare pause. "That is nice, honey." My mother responded, "Abigail, sweetie, tell us more about your campaign posters." Medical school became my haven. During those early years, I only returned home for important holidays, and even then, I counted the minutes until I could escape. Every visit was the same. Abigail's accomplishments were highlighted, while my dean's list standings and prominent internship offers received little attention. I poured myself into my studies, succeeding at emergency medicine rotations and receiving wonderful referrals from renowned doctors. In my third year, I began an emergency medicine rotation at Massachusetts General Hospital. That is where I met Marcus. Marcus was a medical device sales agent, showcasing new trauma equipment to the department. Despite my normal cautious approach to relationships, something just snapped between us. He was unlike anyone I'd dated before, genuinely engaged in my work, supportive of my career goals, and seemingly unconcerned by my ambitions. After graduation, we got married in a simple ceremony. I got a job in the ER at Mass General, and everything felt fantastic. When our son Lucas was born, Marcus appeared to be the adoring father I had hoped for. We bought a house in a good school area, established a lovely nursery, and I felt I'd finally found the family life I'd always desired. But something changed once Lucas turned 1. Marcus became aloof, started working late, and canceled our date nights. Initially, I ascribed it to the difficulties of new fatherhood and my rigorous job as an ER physician. I suggested couples counseling, date nights, and even a trip, but he always found an excuse. Deep down, I sensed something was wrong, but I wasn't expecting what happened next. The confession happened on a routine Tuesday evening. I was feeding Lucas in his high chair when Marcus strolled in, looking as if he hadn't slept in days. "I need to tell you something," he explained, his voice quivering. "I have met someone else. Her name is Catherine. She is a patient's family member, and I am in love with her." My world collapsed in that moment, but years of emotional suppression had trained me to remain calm. The divorce was unexpectedly cordial. Marcus went to Colorado with Catherine, but he insisted on paying substantial alimony and child support. "I may be a terrible husband," he observed at our most recent meeting, "but I won't be a terrible father." True to his word, he has stayed active in Lucas's life through regular video conversations and holiday visits. Marcus's family became an unexpected source of support after the divorce. Regardless of what happened to their son, Tom and Betty remained dedicated grandparents to Lucas, and their daughter Avery became the aunt my sister never was. Every time we visited their house, Lucas would light up and run right to the toy zone they had put up exclusively for him. Tom would get down on the floor and play with trucks, while Avery always had a new game or craft project planned. My own parents' home was a very different scenario. I tried to see them on occasion, hoping they'd want to bond with their only granddaughter, but their apathy was heartbreaking to witness. "Don't let him touch that vase," Mom would say, scarcely looking up from her magazine. "And make sure he doesn't run around too much, he'll scratch the hardwood floors." Lucas would cling to my leg, sensing the frigid air. The contrast grew much more striking when Abigail showed up during our visits. "Here's my successful girl," Dad would beam as Abigail walked in, talking about her new job at a trading company. They'd completely disregard Lucas's attempts to show them his latest drawing, instead focusing on Abigail's every word about workplace politics and client meetings. I'll provide updates shortly regarding recent occurrences that have made me reconsider everything about my relationship with my parents. It's still fresh, and I need time to comprehend everything. For the time being, my emphasis is on my son and the family members who have demonstrated the true meaning of unconditional love. Update number 1. Thank you all for your encouraging words. I've gathered my ideas and wanted to discuss how things changed following the divorce, especially my career and my parents' behavior. After Marcus left, I put myself into my job at the ER. I began working on the most difficult cases, those that other doctors generally avoided. Last year, there was one exceptionally tough case, a patient with many traumas and a convoluted medical history. 3 previous hospitals had transferred him because they deemed him too risky. I spent 16 hours stabilizing him and collaborating with many doctors, and he came through. That instance piqued the department head's interest. "Dr. Mitchell," he called me into his office one morning, "I've been following your performance. How do you feel about leading our new trauma response team?" It meant increased responsibility, longer hours, and a significant wage boost. I agreed without hesitation. The team's success rate under my guidance much exceeded expectations. We decreased critical response times by 30% and had the highest survival rate in the hospital's history. My research papers on emergency trauma protocols have been published in top medical publications. Then followed the promotion to senior attending physician, complete with a corner office and a salary that made my eyes wet. With my newfound financial stability, I purchased a lovely 3-bedroom apartment in an excellent school area. Lucas was pleased to have his own room. "Mom, can I paint the walls blue? Like the ocean?" he inquired, his eyes gleaming. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, "we can do whatever you want." That weekend, Tom and Avery helped us paint, making it a family project. Betty brought baked cookies, and we ended up getting more paint on ourselves than on the walls. This was the point at which my parents' relationship began to change. It started with casual questions about my new lifestyle. Mom began phoning more frequently, asking about Lucas and arranging weekend trips. Initially, I was cautiously optimistic. Perhaps they'd want to be true grandparents to Lucas. The initial visit appeared promising. Mom actually got down on the floor to play with Lucas' train set, which I had never seen her do before. Dad even got him a new toy truck. But then the requests began to arrive, initially in tiny numbers. The refrigerator is making strange noises. The bathroom needs some repairs. Each time, they'd say how tight their finances were and how they couldn't possibly afford it alone. I agreed to help, remembering all of Abigail's dance classes and summer camps that they had paid for but had denied me. Each request was followed by brief intervals of focused attention on Lucas. They'd invite us to dinner, inquire about his school, and express interest in his life. But it didn't last long. Meanwhile, Lucas was excelling at his new school. His teacher informed me, he's exceptionally bright, particularly in science, just like his mom. Avery was beaming at the parent-teacher conference she and I went together. My folks, however, were too preoccupied that day. Every Wednesday, Avery gets him up from school and takes him to science club, which she began doing after observing his interest in my medical books. Tom and Betty have been constants in our lives. They come up every Sunday for family dinner, and Betty has been teaching Lucas how to bake. Last week, they baked chocolate chip cookies together, and Lucas boldly said, "I want to be both a doctor and a baker when I grow up." My parents' financial needs escalated to include a new water heater and house renovations. Then came the biggest one. "Sweetie," Dad called one Sunday, "your mother and I have been considering acquiring a new car. The payments would be costly for us, but with your new position." They named a character that would have made me choke a year ago. Now it was manageable. What followed, however, really struck a chord with me. "We'd pay you back, of course," Mom promised me, but we both knew they wouldn't. "We just need something dependable to drive Abigail to her job interviews. She's having a difficult time in that trading company. You're aware of how intense office politics can be." I agreed to help primarily out of habit. During our usual coffee meetup, Avery realized that something was amiss. "You seem tense," she commented, swirling her coffee. "Have your parents asked for money again?" I told her about the car, and she scowled. "You understand you don't owe them anything, right? Just because you're successful now doesn't mean you have to support their lifestyle." I dismissed her worries, assuring myself I had more than enough money. Wasn't it worth it if buying my parents' attention allowed Lucas to have grandparents in his life? But something felt wrong deep down, the way they'd casually discussed breaking off contact when I hesitated on a payment, and how their interest in Lucas appeared to be directly linked to my financial contributions. Last week, everything came to a head in unexpected ways, but that's another post I'll write when I'm ready. I have to leave now for my shift at the hospital, but I wanted to thank everyone for their kind words. Reading your stories about comparable events has made me feel less alone in this situation. Update 2. The recent occurrences I stated have dramatically altered my outlook on my relationship with my parents. I need to explain what happened during my emergency hospitalization last week. I was in the middle of a presentation at our weekly trauma team conference when the first wave of pain struck, sharp and unexpected, causing me to double over in mid-sentence. Our senior surgeon, Dr. Henderson, identified the symptoms immediately. "Classic appendicitis presentation. We need to get you into surgery." The irony of an ER doctor being an emergency patient did not escape my notice. My mind was racing with thoughts of Lucas as I prepared for surgery. He needed to get picked up from his robotics club in 2 hours. Tom and Betty were on a cruise, while Avery attended a conference in Chicago. Under normal circumstances, I would never approach my parents, but I was out of options. I called Mom when the nurses started my IV. It took 4 rings before she responded. "Mom, I'm in the hospital. My appendix needs to come out immediately. Could you please pick up Lucas from school? I'll need someone to watch him for a couple of days while I recover." The silence that ensued was deafening. "Oh honey, that's not possible," she exclaimed, her voice abruptly icy. "Your father and I are getting ready for Abigail's promotion party. She finally made junior executive at her company, and we're hosting 50 people at Luistro tonight." "Mom, please," I cried, attempting to maintain my voice despite the mounting anguish. "Lucas needs to be picked up in less than 2 hours. I don't have anyone else right now." The nurse adjusted my IV and gave me a compassionate look. "Well, that's not really our problem," she said harshly. "We're in a hurry to get to the restaurant. We can't be babysitting right now. Besides, you know how Lucas is. always being so noisy and touching everything. It's quite a burden, really. I couldn't believe what I heard. A burden? He's your grandson. After everything I've done for you, I've been paying your car loan for the past year, every time you needed money. She interrupted me with a laugh that froze me to the bone. Oh, we won't be needing your handouts anymore. Abigail's new position comes with an excellent salary. She's going to help us instead of you. The call went dead. I lay in the hospital bed, phone still clamped to my ear, tears mixed with cold sweat on my cheeks. The nurse softly touched my arm. Doctor Mitchell, do you have someone else we can call? I called Avery with shaky hands. She picked up on the first ring. Before I could finish explaining, she was already in action. Text me the school details. What time does he need to be picked up? Don't worry about anything else, I've already booked a trip back. We'll have a sleepover with my dog Max, won't we? Lucas enjoys playing with him anyway. But your conference, I started protesting. Stop it, Avery said forcefully. Lucas is my nephew. The conference can wait. Focus on getting better, okay? Lucas will be okay with me, I promise. The next thing I remembered was waking up in recovery, disoriented from anesthesia. My first conscious thought was about Lucas, but there was already a text message from Avery waiting. Lucas is having a blast. We made pizza and created a blanket fort. Max is on guard. Don't worry about anything other than getting better. She uploaded images over the next 2 days, showing Lucas helping her bake cookies, falling asleep in a mound of plush animals, and building Lego hospitals, just like where mommy works. When I was discharged, Avery took me home, having already stocked my fridge, scheduled a cleaning service, and set up a cozy recuperation area in my living room. When I went in, Lucas ran to embrace me, stopping just short when he realized I was ouchy. Aunt Avery let me help make breakfast every morning. And Max slept in my blanket fort, he stated triumphantly. The next day, while recovering from surgery, I came upon dozens of images from Abigail's promotion celebration, which had been posted on the same day I had surgery. Mom and Dad were beaming triumphantly beside Abigail in her expensive dress, with champagne toasts and an exquisite cake that must have cost a lot. Everyone was laughing and partying while I lay in a hospital bed, their grandson disregarded as a burden. That night, after Lucas had fallen asleep, I sat down at my computer. First, I canceled the automatic monthly transfer to my parents' account for their car payment, and then I blocked them on all social media platforms. Looking at the framed photo on my desk of Lucas and me in the park, laughing together while Max chased bubbles around us, I felt something change inside me. I've been trying to buy my parents' love with money and tolerance for years, but real family, real love, is Avery flying back from her conference without hesitation, Tom and Betty FaceTiming Lucas every night while on their cruise, allowing him to show them his latest drawings, and Max the dog guarding my son's blanket fort while I'm in the hospital. I need some time to comprehend everything, but I'll post another update soon. For the time being, I'm focusing on recovery and being present for my son. The hospital granted me 2 weeks of medical leave, and Avery insists on staying with us until I'm back on my feet. Yesterday, she assisted Lucas in decorating my recovery room with his science fair paintings, to make it pretty like the hospital, he stated honestly. But better because it has my art. The realization that my son has never experienced the kind of conditional love I grew up with makes all of this worthwhile. He understands that he is loved for who he is rather than what he can contribute, and that may be the greatest gift of all. I'll post update 3 shortly on what happened when my parents discovered their monthly car payments had stopped, but for now, I need to relax and enjoy this tranquil time with my true family. Update 3 first and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone for their encouraging comments and messages, which helped me persevere through what followed. As many of you predicted, my parents did not take the canceled car payments well. It began with a flood of voicemails and texts, each more desperate than the last. I blocked their numbers, but they started using different phones. The messages ranged from guilt-tripping, "How could you do this to your own parents?" to angry threats. "We'll tell everyone you're an ungrateful daughter." to tearful pleas, "We're going to lose the car because of you." There was no mention of Lucas in any of the messages, and there was no apology for how they treated us during my hospitalization. Everything was about them, their demands, their car, their feelings, their social status. Then came the flying monkeys, and distant relatives and family acquaintances began phoning to tell me how I had broken my parents' hearts. "They're getting older," my Aunt Susan admonished. "It's your duty as their daughter to help them." I wanted to question where their sense of duty was when their grandson needed them, but instead I simply blocked those numbers. Last Sunday, I was sitting in our backyard, watching Lucas and Max play fetch while Avery grilled burgers for lunch, when a car I didn't know drove into my driveway. Mom stepped out with her best church social smile. "Paula, sweetheart," she shouted out, using my first name, which she only does when she wants something. "How are you? We've been worried since you stopped returning our calls." I stayed sat, keeping my voice quiet for Lucas' sake. "What do you want, Mom?" She sat on the edge of a patio chair and smoothed her fashionable skirt. "Well, since you ask, your father and I are in a bit of a predicament with the vehicle payments," she began, letting out that theatrical sigh I knew so well. "You see, we assumed Abigail would help us with her new position and all, but when we asked her," she stopped for dramatic effect. "She just refused. Can you believe it? She said she had her own expenses to worry about after everything we'd done for her." The irony was nearly too much, and I tried not to chuckle. "Oh," she said, her voice lowering. "We were hoping you could start helping with the payments again, just until we figure something else out." When I didn't react right away, she said, "We could lose the car, you know, and then how would we go to all our social engagements?" This time, I couldn't contain my laughter. It spilled forth, sharp and bitter. "Mom, this isn't funny," she said. "We could lose the car." "Do you know what is funny?" I said. 3 months ago, while I was being rushed into emergency surgery, you labeled my son, your grandson, a burden. You couldn't be bothered to assist us since you were too busy celebrating Abigail's advancement. The same Abigail who now refuses to give you a cent. We were just busy that day. You know how these things are," she stuttered. "No, Mom. I know precisely what it was. I was helpful when I paid your debts. Lucas and I became problematic once you believed Abigail could replace me as your personal ATM. That is not fair. We have always what?" I cut her off. "Have you always favored Abigail? Always treated me as if I were second best? Always took my assistance for granted until something better came along?" "Paula, please," her voice broke. "You called my financial assistance handouts, remember? Right before you hung up on me while I was in the hospital? So, guess what? The handouts are done. I'm done attempting to purchase your love. I've had enough of you treating my baby as if he's less important than Abigail's luxury purses. I'm just finished." "But the car?" I stood up, fully free of the burden I'd carried my entire life. "This is no longer my problem. Goodbye, Mom." Lucas dashed over, Max bouncing beside him. "Mommy, see what I can do," he screamed, throwing the ball in a beautiful arc, which Max caught midway. Mom opened her lips to say something, but I interrupted her with a look, and she walked back to her borrowed car and drove away. That evening, we had our customary Sunday family meal with Tom, Betty, and Avery. Lucas proudly demonstrated his new ball-throwing technique as Tom barbecued and Betty set up the patio table. As I saw my son laugh as Avery taught him how to make s'mores, I felt at ease about my decision. Last week, Lucas brought home a family tree project from school, and he had put Tom and Betty right next to me, with Avery and Max nearby. Marcus had his own small branch, and we've maintained things friendly there with regular video chats and holiday visits. However, neither my parents nor Abigail appeared on the page. "Is everything okay, Mommy?" he asked, showing me his work. Miss Johnson said family trees generally include more members, but I told her these are all we need. I posted his drawing on the fridge next to a photo from his previous birthday party, with all of us gathered around the cake and real grins on everyone's faces. "It's perfect, baby," I told him. "Totally perfect. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're supposed to have, and you have to let go of the people who should have loved you in order to make place for the ones who do." It took me 42 years to grasp that lesson, but witnessing Lucas grow up in an environment filled with genuine, unconditional love was well worth the wait. Thank you to everyone who shared their tales in the comments. You gave me the strength I needed to break free from the cycle of conditional love and manipulation. Lucas and I are doing well because we are surrounded by folks who demonstrate what true family means every day. My sister tried to reunite me with my ex for years, even ambushing me while pregnant. I cut ties for my family's safety. I began dating my brother's best buddy when I was 16. We were dating until I graduated high school, and when he proposed, I turned it down. There was a lot of drama, with my family urging me to reconsider because we may have a lengthy engagement or reunite later. My connection with my brother, 36, was strained for a while, but the one with my sister, 32, never recovered. She was sure that my ex was the best person for me, and it got terrible when she began dating my ex's brother. My siblings invited my ex everywhere, even family gatherings. I remained silent because he was also their buddy, but things got out of hand when my sister insisted on us reconciling. She tried everything, from setting up blind dates to forcing us to share a room over the holidays. Regardless of the event, my ex was always invited. I eventually had enough and asked my parents to intervene. They were honest with my siblings and stopped inviting my ex so frequently. My sister, unlike my brother, did not back down. It all came to a head when I met my spouse on a semester abroad. He was from a different university but the same country, and we simply clicked. It was beautiful, and we got engaged after a year together. Except for my sister, the rest of my family was pleased for me. She kept telling me that I was in the honeymoon phase and would grow out of it. Despite numerous confrontations and attempts to reunite with my ex, I warned her that if she did anything else, I would cut her off totally. My sister made me maid of honor for her wedding and planned for me to spend all of my time with the bridal party, which included my ex. She even set up one of her friends as my husband's date. We only learned this at the reception, when the unfortunate girl attempted to make a pass at my husband. My sister said that was fine because we weren't married yet and could explore things with other people. I left the party. The next day, I told my parents and brother that, while I wouldn't force them to pick, I would not speak to my sister again. If they attempted to mend our relationship, I would also cut off communication with them. My father and brother backed my decision, but my mother was upset and attempted to compromise. She stopped after 2 attempts. I have not spoken with my sister in 6 years. She's tried everything, from gifts to tantrums, but I refuse to participate. At family gatherings, I pretend she doesn't exist. Initially, she made sarcastic remarks or attempted to generate drama, but since no one supported her, she quit up. She had a meltdown when she realized she had been invited to my wedding but would not be participating in any preparations. My brother has expressed regret for putting up with her antics for so long, and his relationship with my ex has deteriorated. They still talk, but they're not as close as before. My mother's birthday was a few weeks ago, and I finally confirmed that we are expecting our first child. This is not the first grandchild, but it is the first granddaughter. Everyone was delighted, except my sister. My mother noticed her reaction and invited me around for tea a few days later. My instincts told me not to go, but I wanted to be positive. The first thing I saw when I arrived was my sister's automobile. Upon entering, I noticed my sister, her husband, my ex, and my ex's mother. They had planned an intervention, accusing me of using a childish tactic to ignore my sister for too long. My ex tried to defend his previous behaviors by calling them romantic, but his mother claimed I was hurting my sister, who only wanted the best for me. She apologized on my sister's behalf and insisted that I forgive her. As they chatted, I secretly texted my father, brother, and husband for assistance, staring at my mother in bewilderment. Then my brother-in-law had the guts to call me hurtful and insist on acting like an adult, because I was going to give birth to a baby. My mother started reading a letter about how upset she was that her daughters were not close. She admitted my sister's mistakes, but said they were well-intentioned. My sister responded with her own sorrowful letter, essentially repeating what the others had said. I didn't say anything till my brother came, apparently enraged. He took my belongings and expressed anger and disappointment. We sat in his car until my father and husband arrived. My brother continued to apologize as I sobbed uncontrollably. After leaving, I wrote an email to everyone involved, except my mother, containing my lawyer's contact information and explaining that I no longer wanted to be contacted. I warned that any additional efforts would result in my contacting the police. Nobody has approached me personally, but my father has said that my mother and sister are hysterical. They aim to make things right, with my sister even suggesting that she become involved in my baby's life, potentially as a godmother. My father is currently staying with my brother, and they both completely support me. However, some family members disagree with my decision. Some mutual acquaintances have even contacted me to express their concern for my sister, who is spreading accusations that my husband is keeping me away from my family. To clear the air, I wrote a public post outlining all that had happened. My sister, brother-in-law, and ex are now receiving harsh criticism, which, while not fully my intention, I believe is justified. My mother is still distraught, which makes me feel awful, but not as horrible as her intervention did. I recently decided to chat with my mother about laying ground rules for any future contacts. These include family therapy, set boundaries, no sharing personal information with my sister, and separate holidays. Most importantly, I informed her that if she did something like this again, I would cut her off permanently. She believes these stipulations are excessive, but has decided to comply. However, she mistook this for rapid access to baby news. I explained that it is a process, and she must demonstrate that she has changed. My father and brother refused to speak with my sister and continue to apologize for not intervening sooner. I forgave them because they demonstrated growth. My husband supports whatever option I choose, but my mother-in-law is concerned whether cutting off my mother completely is the best strategy. Ultimately, it is my decision, but I am split about what to do with my mother. Update number 1. I'd want to thank everyone for their help and advice so far. I'd like to provide some additional context indicated in my comments, as I can't respond to each one individually. My ex and I split up when I was 18, and he is now 37. The breakup occurred because I did not want to be married or engaged at the moment. My sister's desire to reunite with him derives from her fixation on the idea of us marrying brothers and being best friends. My mother has always been polite to my husband, but I'm beginning to feel it was all a ruse, which makes me quite sad. My ex has had other relationships since our breakup and has 2 children with one of them, but he is never married. My sister believes that his refusal to marry anybody else is romantic, since it demonstrates that he only ever intended to marry me. However, I've heard that his obsessive behavior extends beyond me. He behaved similarly with his children's mother. My sister has encouraged him to refocus on me. She believes his assistance will put her back in my good graces, allowing her to be a decent aunt. My brother started distancing himself from my ex after I expressed my displeasure with having him around all the time. This transition occurred while I was attending college and visiting my family during breaks. My brother also made an extra effort to welcome my husband, which affected his friendship with my ex, who felt betrayed. Now, my husband is one of my brother's closest friends, and my brother only communicates with my ex when it concerns my nephew, my sister's son, or to avoid being impolite. While both of my parents first appeared supportive of my desire to avoid my ex, it turned out that only my father really agreed. On the day of the tea party, my mother informed my father that she was preparing my favorite tea and pastries for some quality time, but he was unable to stay. My father left to visit my uncle, believing it to be a considerate gift. He is now outraged that he was misled. My husband tried to get along with my sister when they first met, but now he simply ignores her, assuming she is mentally ill. We don't know if she is, but her actions remain unacceptable. The tea party ambush, which featured my ex and his mother, was intended to help me face the root of my issues with my sister, according to their official version. To clarify a few facts, we are not Indians, are not extremely religious, and there is no income discrepancy between my husband and my ex. If anything, my husband might be slightly better off financially. Finally, my sisters-in-law, my brother's wife and my husband's sisters, are outraged by the scenario. My husband and his sisters intend to approach their mother about her comment. Meanwhile, my brother and his wife are thinking about going no contact, ENC, with my mother permanently. They have chosen not to allow her to see my nephews for a while. The more I think about it, the more I believe I'll have to go to North Carolina with my mother for my child's sake. My husband is devastated by the possibility that all of her previous contacts with him were fabricated, but he is even more unhappy that she made me cry and doubted myself as a nice person. While there are still numerous conversations to have with my family about my mother, I have decided to seek a restraining order against my sister and my ex. Semi-update. I spoke with my mother, but she insists she knows best. She labeled me a nasty person and stated that she would pursue grandparents' rights or even custody. While I know none of what she said is true, I was still concerned, so we sent her an official letter about it. My father has recently moved out of their home permanently, telling her that he could not accept her tormenting her own child. My brother and his wife have also agreed to travel to North Carolina with her. I realize this may appear abrupt, but I believe I underestimated how much sorrow I felt following the intervention. Afterward, my husband spoke with everyone, urging them to think seriously about what they valued, but he made it plain that we would not raise our child in a toxic environment. It's one of the several reasons I adore him, reason number 3271, to be specific. My spouse has been saddened by my mother's deception and has determined never to give her anything again. My husband and his sisters also spoke with my mother-in-law about her comment, explaining why it was unacceptable. Fortunately, she is a compassionate and caring individual who comes from a supportive family, so she took their concerns seriously. Meanwhile, my father and brother continue to apologize for any part they played in the incident. My father is still in astonishment that things have progressed to this degree, describing it as unreal. Regardless, they are completely supportive of me and have committed to assist me in fighting any bogus attempts made by my mother and sister. Update 2. I'd like to thank everyone for their beautiful messages and encouraging words. Things are both wonderful and dreadful right now, but I'm trying to remain optimistic. My brother and his wife sat down with my nephews and explained that grandma was ill and had attempted to harm auntie, me, and their younger cousin. They informed the boys that grandma would no longer be a part of their lives, but assured them that she still loved them. It was a difficult topic, but the children were intelligent and understanding. They also learned that my sister is no longer a part of their life. The boys didn't appear to care since they already detested her, Not only because of my circumstances, but also because she hasn't been very nice to them. My mother lost it when she found out she was being cut off and began claiming she had rights and would be able to visit her grandchildren. My father is presently looking for a permanent residence, but he will stay with us until January, primarily because my brother's mother-in-law is visiting and we have available space. He is quite sad about everything and has already contacted divorce lawyers, relocated his bank accounts, and made other required procedures. He has received innumerable emails, messages, and phone calls from my mother but has not responded to any of them, as recommended by his lawyer. In addition, the lawyer advised him not to block her for the time being. My father pondered forgiving her, but a few days after my previous post, my mother and sister showed up uninvited at my place. My sister had never visited my house, and my mother knew I didn't want her there, but she ignored my wishes. The cleaning lady, who was unaware of the circumstances, allowed them in. I observed their car as I was returning from errands. This time, I did not go inside. Instead, I contacted my relatives for assistance, and my husband's sister, who was close, arrived swiftly. She challenged them, telling them to leave or risk arrest for trespassing. They went, but I began to feel unwell. We went to the doctor, who told me that the stress was affecting my health and possibly endanger the baby. My father, along with my brother, uncle and husband, went to my parents' home to collect all of his stuff. My sister was there, yelling at my husband and accusing him of destroying her family. My father attacked my mother and sister, telling them that they had nearly murdered my kid and that he no longer wanted anything to do with them. Since then, my sister has been sending desperate messages to my brother, begging for assistance, but he refuses to intervene. I am devastated and saddened for my nephew, who is losing so much family because of his mother's behavior. However, this is the truth of the matter. Regarding my mother's threats about custody and grandparents' rights, my lawyer wrote her a letter noting that her actions were harmful to both my health and the baby's. The letter warned that continuing harassment would result in legal penalties. My brother also wrote her a letter highlighting her harassment of me. Both my mother and sister have declined therapy. While they may be mentally sick, it is evident that their actions have been consistent for a long time. I've resolved to prioritize enjoying the holidays with my supportive family, being healthy, and continuing therapy. Update 3. I received several requests for an update, so I thought I'd give a little more. First and foremost, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has left comments, notes, and suggestions. You have helped us become more cautious and prepared. Some folks wondered how we found out the baby's gender. We waited until after 20 weeks to announce due to a past loss. We had planned to announce the news when the miscarriage occurred the previous time, so we waited this time to preserve our feelings of security. Unfortunately, we were stupid to imagine that this announcement would be special for my mother. After posting, I gave the problem to my husband, who read all of the suggestions and comments. We conducted a thorough sweep of the house and, happily, discovered nothing unusual. However, we still felt insecure, so we moved to a hotel with my father. We later discovered there was a tracker on my dog's vest. My dog is small, cold, and routinely wears a vest, so we never considered checking there. We discovered the tracker when my father took him for a walk around the hotel, and my sister appeared, asking him about me and offering reconciliation. I was outraged and heartbroken, so we decided to relocate. Fortunately, we can afford it. We are renting out our old house to avoid leaving it empty, but I no longer feel at ease there. It seems destroyed and poisoned now. Unfortunately, my parents' house feels the same way, not only for me, but also for my brother, husband, father, sister-in-law, and my husband's family. We changed all of our phone numbers, purchased new equipment, and informed employers, friends, and the police about the problem. We also began individual and family therapy. Despite the fact that I have sincerely forgiven my father and brother, they are filled with remorse. We're all healing as a unit. Meanwhile, my sister and mother claim that they are not wrong and refuse to attend treatment. My father has prepared a new will. My sister's son will receive a trust fund and some inheritance, but my sister will receive only a modest sum. He is utterly finished with her. I originally felt sorry for her, but I've chosen to devote all of my energies to my daughter. My baby has arrived, and we consider ourselves really fortunate. It hasn't been the experience I expected because my mother isn't present, but many friends and family members have surprised us with their love and support. Toward the conclusion of the pregnancy, we got so careful that we tested people we didn't know by telling them I was going into labor. This approach worked, and we figured out who was still leaking information to my mother and sister. We cut them off right away, and the remainder understood once we explained our reasoning. My ex, whom my friends now refer to as Bates, began spreading false information that the kid was his, claiming we were having an affair due to my undying love for him. Fortunately, nobody believed him. My husband phoned Bates' job, outlining the situation. Long story short, Bates was suspended pending an internal review. I am almost certain he will be dismissed, as his boss has requested additional information and has apologized excessively. My mother has tried to find us, but everyone who knows where we are has stopped communicating with her. My father's lawyer issued her a letter informing her that, due to her instability, any communication would henceforth be handled through legal channels. I've recently been living with simply my husband and my father because I felt horrible about him being alone. He insists that he will be all right and that none of this is my fault, but I still feel terrible for him. He has been an excellent babysitter, feeding, and diaper changer. My nephews are still as affectionate as ever, and my father even got to see my sister's son. This occurred because my sister began producing threatening videos, claiming she would harm herself if my husband did not stop alienating her family. My father emailed her, offering to see her son but warned that if her threats persisted, he would contact the police. Fortunately, this appears to have ended the behavior. Finally, someone claimed that I gave Bates false hope. This could not be further from the truth. I spent years feeling uneasy, hoping he would move on. After speaking up and meeting my husband, I spent a lot of time fighting with my sister over this topic. I had a really long engagement, so I married after my sister. I still love my mother and sister, but I've chosen a healthier lifestyle for myself and my family over love. During this journey, I've learned incredible loyalty, love, and compassion from those around me. Strangely, I feel fortunate that everything exploded since it revealed who actually supported me. Update 4. We formally moved into our new home, with my father moving into the guest house. After numerous discussions, both within and outside of treatment, we agreed it was best for him to remain with us while preserving our separate places. We're still renting out the old house and will determine what to do with it later. My father now sees all of his grandchildren together around 3 times per week. However, he must meet my sister's child separately since she would not allow him to take her son unless she knows where he lives. While this may appear to be a fair concern, considering her unstable behavior, we do not want her anywhere near our new house. My mother complained to the lawyers about how unfair it is that my father gets to see his grandchildren, but there is nothing she can do. About a month ago, my father made a revelation that made me anxious. He stated that he has been paying for my nephews, my sister's sons, education and babysitting, which is why she continues to allow him visitation. He felt horrible about keeping it from me and didn't want any secrets between us. I assured him everything was all right and begged him not to feel bad about it. On Mother's Day, my father received an email containing a link to an Instagram account. The account included a sorrowful video about how my mother has been abandoned by the majority of her family, and how my sister is a saint for supporting her. It was sad and irritated me, yet I forwarded it to our lawyer. My father filed for divorce in May, and the process is still underway. My mother insists he is in the wrong, but my father has informed me he would rather drink bleach than reconcile with her. I suppose that's it. For Father's Day, my brother and husband took my father out, and they had a great day. My sister attempted to create drama by posting various things online, but we stopped my father from viewing them so he could enjoy the day. They also went camping with the kids, sort of. They booked a hotel suite, pitched a tent in the middle for the elder kids, and set up a little teepee for the newborn. Moments like these remind me of how much joy my baby has given to our life. I'm overjoyed to see my spouse as the wonderful father I knew he'd be. While it is exhausting, the support we have gotten from family and friends makes me really grateful. My sisters-in-law and I now use a calendar to organize activities for the children, ensuring that they are age-appropriate and fun for them. We have also made it obvious to the children that they do not have to spend time with someone they dislike, and that their feelings are important. Right now, all the youngsters are enamored with the infant and have declared themselves her protectors. We've done small gatherings like breakfasts, and family time has become enjoyable rather than stressful. Without my sister present, the atmosphere is much lighter. I know it's horrible to say, but she constantly appeared to drain the positivity from the room. My mother-in-law, MIL, also enjoys spending time with the baby and typically stays in the guest room once a week. She has been really respectful, constantly asking gently and making it obvious that she does not want to overstep or take the infant to sleepovers. I feel heard and valued by her. Despite this, I've broken down at times because I mourn my mother, the mother I believed I had, not the one who warned me I'd be a bad mother and a cruel woman. My therapist reminds me that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and urges me to focus on the good. Speaking of positives, Bates got fired from his job. Not only that, but his reputation in his sector has been entirely destroyed, on a nuclear scale. His brother, on the other hand, was unaffected because his industry does not place a high value on reputation, and as far as I know, he is still employed. Bates gave me a 12-page, double-sided, single-spaced letter about how sad he is that I am denying him what's his, and how my husband feels so threatened by him that he had to kill him professionally since he couldn't demolish anything else. I say seems because I did not read it. My lawyer did and provided a synopsis. I also heard through the grapevine, no, I don't ask. They just tell me since they know he is tracking me, that his children's mother had moved away, and he didn't care. He reportedly stated that it was for the best. This man does not care about his children and prefers to play family with me and my baby. Unfortunately, Bates will not be homeless because his mother has already allowed him to move back in with her. I doubt he'll learn anything from this. Not the most flashy of updates, but it is what it is. Oh, and my spouse burned or donated every single object given to him by my mother or parents, with my father's permission. He claims life is too short to allow her any space, even in memories. Hi, Reddit, I haven't seen you in a long time. I have a few updates for you. First, I'd like to thank everyone for their remarks and letters. Every time I come into this account, I am greeted with largely pleasant sentiments, which I appreciate greatly. For those looking for updates, the majority of them are good, so let's get started. My parents are now divorced following numerous disputes and tantrums by my mother. She maintained the house and received a lump sum settlement, but that's all. My dad is like a new guy, and we are all overjoyed for him. A little throwback. Despite the drama, we did not fire our cleaning lady. She has been assisting my husband's family for decades, and I was quite concerned about her being out of work due to my wild family. My father spoke with her, telling her she was on paid vacation until we had a new house and asking her to wait for us if she wanted. She was overjoyed, and her family was really grateful. Through this relationship, my father met her sister, who operates a nail shop, and they are now dating. She is a nice woman with adult children, so she knows our family's dynamics. My father has made it obvious that he does not want to move in or marry again, and she is content with that because she cherishes her independence. My mother almost had a stroke when she learned about his new relationship. She continued referring to it as a late midlife crisis and accusing him of being a sugar daddy. I haven't spoken with her, but I know she's hurting financially. She was never adept at budgeting and relied on my father to limit her excessive spending. My sister is also struggling now that my father has ceased aiding her with money. He was originally prepared to continue supporting her for the sake of my nephew, but things changed when my nephew began calling my child an affair baby, claiming she wasn't with her real dad, and even pushing one of my husband's nephews at a party, claiming they weren't actually cousins. The children were perplexed and promptly informed an adult. My father attempted talking to my nephew, but he continued saying the same things. When my father told my sister about it, she remarked, "Kids always tell the truth." That was the final straw. My father cut them off financially and informed her that adjustments needed to be done before he would reconsider. She panicked and screamed, but she refused to give in. Bates is still unemployed. Ironically, his employment involved vulnerable women and stalking, so he was sacked. The organization did not want the scandal to harm them, so they fired him. Bates has sent me 2 more handwritten, rambling letters, but because he only has my lawyer's address, they will be read, filed, and dealt with by my lawyer. My lawyer is a champion. A surprising thing occurred in the supermarket shop. A random woman approached me and inquired whether my baby was Bates's child. I was speechless. She told me he has images of us on his page and blamed me for hurting such a good man. It turns out that Bates is still spreading the story that my kid is his and that I adored him. What surprised me the most was that the photo she mentioned was never made public. It was only shared once with a family group. My husband and I immediately felt there was a rat in the family. After further inquiry, we discovered that my dad's 2 sisters were giving information to my mother. My father was terribly saddened, but he had no concerns about cutting them off. My brother and his family are doing well. We've spent family vacations together, and they've also stopped communicating with my mother and sister. My sister-in-law acknowledged she was never a fan of our mother, but she kept the peace for the family. My mother-in-law stays amazing. She is thrilled to get overnight babysitting privileges. She occasionally gathers all of her grandchildren under one roof, which they like. She even had to make her social media accounts private because my mother was stalking her, which she handled beautifully. My hubby continues to be my rock. We're thinking about having another baby or adopting. It is an honor to have these chats, and I am glad every day for the support system we have. I still miss my mother, the one I thought I had. I sometimes cry when I think about the milestones I can't share with her anymore. But, at the end of the day, she is not a decent person, and my family's safety comes first. This Father's Day, my husband and father went camping. It went smoothly, With the exception of a few mosquito bites and sunburns. Life is improving, and I'm determined to focus on the good.